Hi guys, welcome to today 20 or the 23rd day of the trial. If it's okay, it's the last day that we will hear any witnesses before the closing arguments. Amber has one more hour of very exciting things to sell, and Johnny 7. So let's see if they actually take the complete hours. So yesterday was a bit bum, I reckon, with the pictures, of course, and the guy from TMC to actually say that the footage came from Amber directly, even though he didn't say that. But I saw a lot of discussions about that yesterday online, and what he actually is saying, so they can't use footage if they don't have the copyrights, and the copyrights are always of the person who originally took footage, made photos, wrote a script. It doesn't really matter. So the person who made something, that's the owner of copyright. So Amber made the video, what means that Amber owns the copyrights to that video because she made it. So without saying that it was Amber who leaked the footage, he is actually saying Amber leaked the footage. It is a bit unfortunately that you actually really can't say, or by name, because then it will be hearsay. But like, it's pretty clear, I reckon. Although when I saw the discussions today, it's like not a lot of people actually understand what copyright actually is or how to gain access to it. So what he said is that normally when they get something, they need to get the copyright. So they have to be able to use it, otherwise they can be sued. And normally it can take a while. Like if somebody is sending you something, but it's coming from somebody else, and that one sent it to somebody else, and you go on, it can take a while before you actually get the copyrights of a person who actually owns the footage. In this case, it only took 15 minutes. Well, that says enough as well. So the video just came from the copyright owner. What is, or who is Amber? So I'm actually really wondering which witness they will recall to the stand. Because they need to be really careful. Like, there can be a cross, and we heard other witnesses as well. So I don't think it will be a very smart move to actually recall any psychologist or psychiatrist, because, well, they didn't really a good job, did they? And I'm not talking about Amber's side. So, like the agent, that wasn't a really smart move. So I don't think it will be a very smart move to actually get her back on the stand. So It will be interesting today. So we're at the last day. So let me know what you guys think. Okay. Like you saw both sides. We all know where we actually a bit going. But what about the evidence that actually is presented? If you just look at that, so where do you think the jury is actually at? Be interesting to see your or the views you guys have. So I actually really don't know if Johnny arrived already. Don't think so. And then the photos. I think it's really interesting. Okay, the data and actually seen that it has been in an edit program. We have seen how you actually can change it, and that it was actually tempted with. So first, Mixie is that Team Johnny, or actually like what evidence really was there that you're like, okay, like when you actually look at the claim, so the op-ed or the Waldman, she admitted to actually send a tweet out with the story attached to it. What makes Johnny case about the op-ed stronger? Like getting Waldman on the stand and he can't answer the question doesn't mean that he is covering for Johnny. It's just the client and lawyer privilege what they have. So it's confidential, everything. So if he is actually talking, it means Johnny can sue him as well. So it's not that Johnny actually said something to him. It's about the lawyer and his client and the confidential talk they actually have. So that will be, I think, very interesting as well. And she hasn't proved that Johnny actually really knew about the interview, even if it may seem, or the statements Waldman made. And then on the other hand, when you look at other cases like criminal cases, the lawyer is always saying things to actually defend. Yes, definitely. The first in the YouTube chat. Good. Really appreciate your coming back as well. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done it yet. Would be good. So we have, I think we still have tomorrow, so the closing arguments. And oh, Jesus, that's the whole courtroom. Yeah, look at that. Thanks for following. The whole courtroom is just like, yay. So it's only Johnny Depp fans in that courtroom. Well, except for Whitney. And the woman next to Whitney, what is that? Amber's mom. Does anybody know? So yes, tomorrow closing arguments, and then seeing how long it actually will take till the jury comes back with verdicts. And it actually says a lot, you know. I don't think it's even about the money or the op-eds or the Waldman. This is actually a verdict of who is telling the truth and who is lying. And then on the other hand, that isn't the case at all. So I think probably a jury has some issues with it as well. Like, okay, we have to look at the op-ed, but it's all about domestic violence and the IPV. So who is telling the truth? And if it's just about the op-eds or the Waldman statements, because that's why they're suing. So I'm streaming the whole trial. And normally, no, not every day. So I stream every Saturday at 5 p.m. in the afternoon, New York time, United States time. We have a review about movies about mental health. So this week we have the review of As Good as It Gets. Then on Mondays we're having a review about mental health videos that are posted on our YouTube channel. So explaining mental health or the different mental health disorders, illnesses, and struggles. We will talk about it and explain more about them. So what it actually is. So we do that every Monday. So people can actually ask questions, but also get some support if they're struggling themselves. That's where the whole channel is actually about. It's to support and educate people about mental health. Then we have on Wednesdays really questions and answers. So if there are any questions or suggestions or things like that, normally that's it. Or there has to be a big case what involves mental health. So in this case it actually does. That's why I've been asked to cover a part of the trial. So I've watched the trial from the beginning, but I haven't streamed it. We started streaming after really the borderline personality came out. Because people who actually have borderline were upset that they will be labeled as domestic violence perpetrators, while that's not the case. So no, not every day except for now. Or maybe every day when people actually like the topics we're discussing and they would like to see more. So it's always an option to do more. So every Sunday we post a video. Last week, because I'm covering the trial, the video got a bit late. So I think it was posted on Monday or Tuesday. This week it will be probably the same, because I have to write a script and then we have to edit everything. So I'm not sure if I will make it on Sunday. Depends a bit on how it's going tomorrow and when we are finished, so I actually can do things. So the videos will post on Sunday. It's premiere every week, except now then. But Monday normally we review the video, or we talk about the video or the subjects that we were talking about. So this week we had a video about the different mental health professionals and what they do exactly, and how to support a loved one or family or friend who is struggling with their mental health, how you can support them.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
What you can say to them and
your next
what
witness.
not to say. So
we call Dr. Richard Gilbert, Your Honor.
Dr. Gilbert.
There we go.
Yeah.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to testify truthfully in this case under penalty of law?
I do.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning,
Yes.
Dr. Gilbert.
Good morning.
Saturday is the movie
Would
review.
you please state your name for the record?
Richard Stephen Gilbert.
And what is your occupation?
I am an orthopedic surgeon and I have a subspecialty training in surgery of the hand and upper extremity.
Dr. Gilbert, where do you work currently?
I currently work in New York and Long Island at Northwell Health.
And you mentioned you have a specialty. Can you tell us a little bit more about what your specialty is?
So after medical school, I trained in orthopedic surgery and I did an orthopedic surgery residency. And for a year thereafter, I did a hand and upper extremity surgery resident fellowship. And so my practice for the past 22 years has been limited to surgery of the hand, wrist, and elbow.
And I think you may have gotten ahead of me there, but how long have you been practicing?
22 years.
Okay. What percentage of your practice over the past 22 years has involved surgery?
Approximately 1/3 of my practice.
Okay. And other than that 1/3 that involves surgery, what does the rest of your practice entail?
The rest of my practice entails some academic work, but mostly seeing patients
I have
in the
to
office,
do that
seeing
still
them
on
either pre- or
YouTube, you're
post-operatively.
right.
A large
I need
portion
to
of
put
hand
my
surgeons,
schedule up.
treat patients non-operatively.
So that will be up
In terms of the surgeries
probably
that you
tomorrow.
do, can you describe for us the types of surgeries that you will perform?
So again, I limit my practice to hand, wrist, and elbow.
Yeah,
I would
I'm
say
really looking
approximately
forward to the
75%
review
or
as well.
so of my practice is limited to the hand itself. And this really varies from anything from conditions like carpal tunnel syndrome to tendinitis to injuries such as amputations, fractures, sharp lacerations, etc.
Over the course of your 22 years of practice, how many surgeries would you estimate you've performed?
I perform about 300 to 400 surgeries a year, so a rough estimate would be approximately 10,000, maybe a little less.
That's a lot of surgeries.
Where are you currently licensed?
In New York.
And how long have you been licensed in New York?
I have been licensed in New York since 1994, so that would be 28 years.
And do you have any certifications?
Yes.
And can you tell us about those?
I am board certified by the American Board of Orthopedic Surgery, and I have a certificate of added qualifications in surgery of the hand from the American Society for Surgery of the Hand.
When did you receive your board certification?
2002.
And can you describe for us what current positions you hold?
I am currently an assistant professor of orthopedic surgery at Northwell Health, and I'm also the president-elect of the New York Society for Surgery of the Hand.
In what professional organizations are you a member?
I'm a member of multiple orthopedic organizations, including the American Board of Orthopedic Surgery, the American Association of Orthopedic Surgery, and the American Society for Surgery of the Hand, as well as the New York Society for Surgery of the Hand.
Have you published any articles in your field?
Yes, I have.
Have you testified as an expert before?
Yes, I have.
Can you ballpark for us how many times?
Certainly less than 10 over the past 22 years.
Your Honor, at this time, we'd like to offer Dr. Gilbert as an expert in the field of orthopedic surgery, specializing in the hand.
All right, any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
So moved.
Well,
Dr. Gilbert,
other expert who will say he
what
doesn't
work were
agree
you
with
asked
the other
to do in
expert.
connection with this case?
So I was asked to review medical records, radiographs, pictures, as well as testimonies and depositions related to Mr. Depp's finger injury.
Yeah, exactly. Is this your
And
15 minutes of fame? It was really
To
ridiculous
your
yesterday,
understanding,
wasn't it?
what is Mr. Depp's explanation of how his finger was injured?
He describes that he was in Australia and his right hand was over the side of a bar when a vodka bottle was thrown at his hand, injuring his right middle finger. And he describes that the vodka bottle exploded.
Are you aware of other explanations for that injury?
Yeah, but it
There have
doesn't
been
really
multiple
make any
other
sense,
explanations,
especially when you say
but
it every
I think
time. Like, how do
the
you
one
want your
that
15 minutes of fame?
was
It's
brought
like,
out
well,
was by Ms. Heard.
really, woman.
Believe that Mr. Depp was holding
You want
a
me to
landline
write a list
and at the anger
down?
was punching it against the wall.
Like, there will
and
be a
this
schedule
resulted
up,
in
I
his right
reckon, on
middle finger
YouTube.
injury.
But I think that will be tomorrow.
Based on your review of the
But to say
medical
it,
records,
it will be
and other documents in connection
live
with Mr. Depp's
streaming
finger injury,
on
how would you describe the
Saturday,
nature of the
Monday,
injury to Mr. Depp's
and
finger?
Wednesday. That's
Well, the
live
nature of the
stream,
injury was
and
he had
a
what we describe
video
as a comminuted fracture of
uploaded
the
that
distal phalanx,
premieres
meaning
on
there was
Sundays.
a fracture of the tip of the finger, and comminuted meaning that there were multiple pieces. So this is some type of blunt force
exactly,
with a high
right.
mechanism of injury. He also sustained loss of
Such
the
a long
tissue
time ago.
along what's called the ulnar side of the finger towards the little finger. And this appeared, based upon my review of the pictures, to be some type of sharp laceration because it represented a clean edges of the wound.
Can you take a look at Plaintiff's Exhibit 60
Well, what the other guy said didn't make sense anyway.
and pull up?
So
to
it
go to
couldn't
page
be
3.
glass because then his nail would be black.
And Dr. Gilbert, are you familiar with this document?
But it had to be
Yes.
something what
And what is it?
does that. But then
So
the
these
finger
are
or the nail is
two
getting black as well.
Radiographs, x-rays of Mr. Depp's finger, his middle finger.
Okay. Sorry, just to stop you, but Your Honor, may we publish this to the jury as a demonstrative?
Any objection? All right, we'll
Oh.
identify it as 60, page 3, and published to the jury.
Yes, but this week
And Dr.
it's
Gilbert, sorry
possible
to cut
that
you
the
off
video
there.
will be
Can you just
uploaded
tell
on
jury,
Monday because now I'm covering
what we're looking at here in
this
this
trial.
Two x-rays of
But I
Mr.
think
Depp's
it
right
will
middle
be
finger
Sunday,
after the
though.
injury. And towards the tip of the finger, there's a fracture. Again, what I described
Are we
as
getting
a comminuted
disgusting
fracture,
pictures
meaning there
again?
are multiple pieces at the tip. There's also a transverse component to the fracture closer to the joint.
In your view, what types of mechanisms can cause this sort of injury?
So this is a mechanism of injury that has high velocity or force, generally a crush type injury. A simple fall would not result in a comminuted fracture such as is seen in these x-rays.
And we're using the term comminuted fracture. Can we just define that quickly for us?
So again, comminuted, and it's not particular to a finger, is a medical term for a fracture that has multiple fragments.
In your opinion, could this injury have been sustained in the manner Mr. Depp described?
I do believe so.
And how might that work?
They
might a
will
thrown
ask
vodka
probably,
bottle
could it
produce
have
an
been
injury
something
like
else?
So vodka bottle, which is a hard object, would have crushed the tip of the finger, resulting in the comminuted fracture. And in addition, as the vodka bottle broke, the glass would have lacerated the finger, resulting in the soft tissue loss that was also seen with this injury.
What's your assessment of the description of the cause of the injury offered by Ms. Heard?
I think that's highly unlikely.
And why is that?
Because one, in general, when an injury is caused by punching against a wall or a hard object, it is extremely rare to see an injury to the tips of the fingers, which is seen with Mr. Depp's injury. Generally, you're holding something with a fist, and that in general leads to injuries most commonly of the knuckles here, or fractures of the metacarpals. We call these boxer fractures. Second most common after those would be injuries to
You have
these.
to
But
talk
as
to
you can
Luna
see, if
about
you're
that
holding
one,
something and
like he knows
hitting
about
against
fractures
something,
of the
it is
hands.
very unlikely that the tips of the fingers will be injured. In addition, just taking into account the radiographs and the pictures of the injury, I would not believe that a blunt force, solely a blunt force against a wall would result in the soft tissue loss.
What other injuries, if any, would you expect to see on Mr. Depp's hand if the injury had occurred as Ms. Heard described?
So if you would have, if that were the cause of the injury, you would certainly, that would be a dorsally directed, so this is the dorsal in the back of the hand as opposed to the palmar side. So if you're punching against something, you would certainly expect an injury to the nail bed, and those are always seen in those type of injuries. If there is an injury to the tip of the finger, which again I said is rare. So you would see either a loss of the nail or blood underneath the nail called a subungual hematoma.
In your review of the medical records, did you see any sign of anything like that?
The
None
other thing
whatsoever.
what I was wondering about is that Amber's heart, her team rests.
In
But
your view,
now
is
they
the
will call
injury-
another witness
Can you explain to us
or
exactly
recall
why
another
you
witness.
think the injury
Like, is that possible when you
is
actually
consistent with Mr.
rest?
Depp's description?
Well, again, his hand, he describes his hand being held over a marble bar, which is a firm, something firm, unyielding, and the bottle hit against the finger. So basically the finger was crushed, resulting in, again, what I described as a comminuted fracture. And as Mr. Depp described, the bottle exploded, so it's certainly reasonable that the glass that exploded as well led to the soft tissue loss along the ulnar aspect of his finger.
Now, did you observe the
But
testimony
that's almost
of
the
Dr.
same. That
Richard Moore?
everybody is
Yes, I did.
saying
He
that
testified
Amber
about
Heard's
Mr.
face
finger injury
pictures
as
are
well.
fake.
Correct.
So they
Did
need
you
to
agree
discredit
with
that.
Dr. Moore's testimony?
Certain parts
They're
of his
only not
testimony I
doing a
did,
very
yes,
good job with it.
but not all of it.
Like,
Focusing on the parts that you, well, first of all, why don't you tell us what you agree on?
I understand why
I
they
agreed
do it,
in
but
terms of his interpretation of the x-rays, saying that he had a comminuted fracture and this was some type of high force injury.
Okay. What did you disagree with?
Well, I disagreed
should go to law
with several things that he said. He first said that he does not believe that the mechanism of injury could be, as described by Mr. Depp, holding the hand on the side of a marble bar, because he said it was all a palmar injury, and there was a palmar component to the injury. I'm talking about the soft tissue loss, but there was also a dorsal, meaning the back of the finger. So the soft tissue loss was actually, if you looked at the pictures which were shown when Dr. Moore testified, the injury goes like this. So it's an angled or an oblique type injury. And there's no way that anybody could determine whether or not it was a palmar directed force, meaning from the palm side, or a dorsally directed force. But certainly either are plausible.
Yes, that's correct, Nixie.
Anything else come to mind that you disagreed with?
And
Well,
depends.
he
If we
also,
have something interesting, we will stream more,
described
but
that
we
this
will
was
actually promote it on
definitive.
Instagram
He
or
thought that this was a
Facebook,
pinching, or what he described as an avulsion type injury.
so that
And
people
that's
will actually
referring
know.
to the soft tissue loss. That's certainly possible, but if you look at the pictures that were shown when he testified, the laceration
audio
looked
is shocking
fairly
sometimes,
clean. There were
isn't
clean
it?
edges. It was not jagged. And generally, when you have an avulsion or a pinch type injury, you see a very irregular border to the skin. It's pinched off, you can imagine, as opposed to something that's cleaner that would be lacerated by, let's just say, a piece of glass or a knife or whatever. And that's more consistent with the pictures of Mr. Depp's injury.
And we're using the term soft tissue loss, and just to make sure we're on the same page, can you just tell us very quickly what you're referring to there?
Right, so there were two components to this injury. One, the fracture of the bone, and two, he had loss of the soft tissues so that the bone was exposed. So that amputated part that was found at the bar.
So let's say when you rest, you
Now,
are
you were
done,
saying
but
that
you
Dr.
still can
Moore
recall.
testified that this was an avulsion.
So you can't bring
meaning a pinching
other
injury,
ones.
right?
Correct.
Why do you believe it's more likely that it was a laceration?
Well, again, in general, a pinch-type injury results in, one, much more damage to the remaining
You mean
tissue,
the
but the
skin
remaining
on
tissue is usually very irregular. The borders are
X-ray?
jagged, and that's not what was depicted in the pictures.
Dr. Moore also testified that he thought a vodka bottle might not have sufficient force to cause the injury here. Is that your understanding of his testimony?
Correct.
What's your response to that?
I certainly believe that a vodka bottle that was thrown from a distance against a hand that was resting on a marble bar is more than sufficient force to result in this fracture and soft tissue loss.
Yes, our YouTube channel is quite
Now,
new.
in looking at the medical records and the pictures of Mr. Depp's hand, what was the condition of his nail?
So is our
There was no injury
streams.
to the nail.
And other than what you've already told us, how does that factor into your analysis, if at all? The fact that there was no injury to the nail?
Well, it makes it highly unlikely that the mechanism
So,
of
like,
injury
normally
described by
I,
Ms. Heard,
work in
resulted
the
this
mental
injury,
health
because you
field.
really would
So
always see an injury to the nail and or nail
when
bed.
I actually understood that a lot of people are having trouble
Do you have any opinion
getting
regarding
the
the
help,
direction of the
especially
injury?
in the COVID time.
Well,
That's when
It's certainly
we
based upon the
decided
soft
to
tissue
set up
loss.
chatting
It's
mental
an
health.
angled
So
injury, or what we call it
we actually
medically an
can
oblique
talk
injury,
openly
because the
about
soft tissue
mental health
loss is at an
to
angle.
raise more
You lost
awareness
some of the
and
tissue on the back
stop the
of
stigma.
the finger as well as the palm side.
And do
primarily
more
along the palm
explaining
side, but
about
other
the
than
different
that,
mental health
you can't make any
struggles or
assumptions. Unless
illnesses,
you saw a videotape of this
so that
injury,
people actually have a
nobody
more
could tell you
understanding.
definitively what the direction of the injury was.
Dr. Moore also commented
I
on
will
the absence of
put a link. Alana, can you
fragments of
put a
broken
link in
glass in Mr. Depp's injury.
to the YouTube channel?
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
And I think
how does the absence of glass fragments factor into your analysis?
not now.
It really doesn't.
Like I'm still
I've seen
working, so
hundreds, if not
I have patients
at least
tomorrow
500
morning as
or
well.
more glass
So it's a
injuries,
bit
and,
hard.
I would
So
say
now
the
it's,
majority
for me,
don't see
it's
glass
like
in
9:30
these injuries.
in the evening.
It is much more common to see
So actually
glass
doing
embedded in the wounds when you're
this
talking about
live
very
chat,
fine
it's
glass. So if
Yeah, sure.
To say a wine glass would explode.
And I
or
think
something
it's
of
in
that
the
nature where you
links
get little tiny shards.
on Twitter as
But
well.
in general, when you have thick glass, such as
In
you
the
see in
social
bottle,
media tab.
or a pane of glass, you generally don't see.
But I know
they
Alana is
break into bigger pieces
on the
and you generally
YouTube as
don't
well,
see
so
the
she
glass,
can
but,
put a
you
link
certainly
through.
can, but it's not surprising that you don't.
Can you definitively state how this injury occurred?
No, nobody can definitively state.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination.
So yeah, it's quite new, but we really want to support
Thank you, Your
people who
Good morning, Dr. Gilbert.
Good morning.
are really struggling or who want
Now,
more,
you're being paid $1,000 an hour for your work on this case, correct?
want more
Correct.
information, or people who are
And
actually
you agree,
taking
just
care
to
of,
sum up how Mr.
or
Moniz
having
finished,
friends
you
of
agree
people struggling.
that the finger injury could have been caused
Thanks,
by
Lam.
any number of things, right?
Yes,
And you're not offering an expert opinion on what you believe caused the finger injury, correct?
correct.
And you're aware, you said a few times Miss Heard's account or Miss Heard's explanation, right?
Oh, there
You were
we
saying
go
that?
again.
Yes,
You're actually aware that Amber has said she doesn't know how he lost his finger. You're aware of that, right?
yes.
So when
So
we were just
first
talking
you
about
ask,
Miss
oh,
Heard's
you're
account
not
or Miss Heard's
sitting here to
explanation, you're
actually
aware
say
she's
how he
never
lost
actually
his
given an
finger,
explanation
but
for
you
how
know
she
that
thinks he lost his
Amber
finger.
never said.
Correct.
No,
Yes.
You're aware that Miss Heard testified, and this was from your deposition, you're aware that she testified she doesn't know how he got his fingertip chopped off. You're aware of that, right?
Asked and answered, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Well, it's
no, I'm not. I reviewed the records, and in one of the testimonies that depositions that I reviewed, it was described that that potentially it was lost when he was punching against the wall with a phone.
And on that, the last point there, I think we agree. Miss Heard's testified in this trial and previously that she saw him smash a phone to smithereens, a wall phone. You'd agree with that, correct?
Correct.
But she doesn't know if that was what caused him to lose his finger. You agree with that, correct?
I agree. I cannot speak for her, but yes.
Okay. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
well, that doesn't really matter. Like, they called the witness that actually got buried as well. But they called the witness saying that the vodka bottle couldn't cause
Dr.
the
Gilbert,
injury to his
You
finger.
gave a deposition in this case on March 17th, correct?
Correct.
You were under oath in that deposition. You swore to tell the
Correct.
truth, correct?
Correct.
Okay, if you could turn to page 61, please. You see there are four pages per page of paper. It's on page 16 of the document.
Okay.
Okay, in line 9, you're asked a question, and then Amber's response to that question, that's the line 9. Can you read that, please? Answer, I do not know. I did not see his finger go off. Question, and Dr. Gilbert, are you aware that Amber did not see Mr. Depp's finger go off? Answer, I mean, I'm aware that, well, I am from reading this. I'm aware of the mechanism that she claimed would cause the finger injury. Question, but have you read anything so far that indicates she doesn't know how the finger injury happened? Answer, so far from what I'm reading here, yes. Did I read that right?
Yes.
And you've heard no
It's
testimony
already
in this
asked
trial
in
from Ms. Heard
questions.
that the finger injury was definitively caused by the phone, so that she doesn't know, correct?
Correct.
And you'd agree that the fingernail
Well,
was uninjured. You said that,
When
right?
I was
Correct.
young, I
And the
had a
nail
little
bed was
crush
uninjured.
on Prince
Correct,
William, but
But the area
he is
under
taken,
the
so I
fingernail
probably
and the
never
pulp of
will
the
be
finger,
the
that's
ruler
where
of
the
the
injury
United
took place, right?
Kingdom.
It was not isolated to the pulp, no.
But it
Although,
didn't injure the fingernail.
maybe I
That's
would
my
be
correct.
better than
Yes.
Camille.
And
Like,
under Mr.
come on,
Depp's
let's be honest.
alleged theory, Amber threw a vodka bottle at him from 10 feet away or so, right?
Correct.
And you testified you have no way
Although
to
I
determine
think the
the
Queen
angle
will
that the bottle
sit
was coming from.
For
Correct.
some time on
But
the
she
throne.
threw it on a downward trajectory, correct? She didn't. There's no allegation. You've never read anything that she somehow underhanded it so it came up to his finger, right?
Correct.
And there's no way to tell, as you testified, what exact direction it came from, right?
Correct.
And the glass exploded, but you've already testified there was no glass in the wound, right?
Correct.
You haven't read any record of that in any medical records, correct?
Correct.
You also haven't read anything about there being cuts on the rest of his hand, right?
Correct.
And there was no glass found anywhere on the rest of his hand, correct?
Correct.
No bruising or injury on any other part of his hand other than the tip of his middle finger.
Correct.
And somehow, under Mr. Depp's theory, that bottle hit the bar and his fingers, but didn't damage the fingernail while it amputated the area under the nail. Correct?
Correct.
And your explanation of that is that you believe that his hand must have moved at some point during the force of the injury.
People,
Isn't
have
that
you
correct?
ever
No,
done
I
the
said it
dishes
could've, but I
and
did not say that it did.
a glass
you
breaks
believe
in
that
the
it did,
sink,
don't
okay? But you
I
don't
said that
see it because
likely
all
did,
the
but I was
foamy
not
and
there,
soap.
and I don't have videotape of the injury,
And
so I can't
You
determine
grab
that
in the
definitively.
glass.
Okay. Well,
How
let's
much
turn to
glass
page
is in
25
the
of your
wounds,
deposition,
and
please.
how many
Page
other
7.
wounds do you have? Like, I only have one. Like, my hand isn't totally busted in.
Page 25 and 26, so it's
Or
page
is that
7 of the
something
document.
different?
Okay.
Sorry if I was unclear on that.
No problem. I'm there.
Okay. Line 18, question, and to be clear, by, quote, sitting in that position, you mean hand down, palmar side down. Answer, that's what he claimed. I mean, according to the history, yes. Question, and would it matter if Mr. Depp's hand was palmar side down? Answer, not really, because it really, and I discussed this, it really just depends upon the angle at which the injury occurred, and as well, you can't determine if his hand had moved at some point during the force of the injury, which I believe it probably did, which I didn't get into in my note here, but question, and why do you believe that? Have you read anything in any of the materials to suggest that? Answer, no. Just that if it completely hit on the back of the finger, then he would have had a nail bed injury, which he did not. Did I read that right?
Correct.
That was testimony you gave under oath a month or two ago, right?
Correct.
So even though you have never read anything that suggests Mr. Depp's hand moved, his hand moving is the only way that you can
Hi,
fit
Lion.
your testimony into what Mr. Depp wants you to testify to about how the injury occurred, isn't it?
No, that's incorrect.
Okay, that's what you testified to, that if his hand hadn't moved, that there would be a nail bed injury, correct?
That is incorrect. That's not what I testified. That's
In
not
fact,
what...
Dr. Gilbert, there's another explanation for how Mr. Depp somehow suffered an injury that didn't injure his nail one bit, but injured underneath the nail. And that explanation is that it didn't happen how Mr. Depp says it did, correct?
I cannot make that assumption, nor can you.
No further questions.
All right, redirect.
Redirect, come on.
Dr. Gilbert, just very briefly. The
Well,
absence
she
of
said it
other
happened with a
cuts
foul.
on Mr.
Well,
Depp's
how?
hand. How do you factor that into your analysis?
You certainly can see an isolated finger injury with any type of injury, and I would say any other host of mechanisms of injuries, you'd more likely see other, so again, if you're, I'm just using this as an example, if you're punching against a wall, you would more likely see multiple injuries to multiple fingers. It really just depends upon how the bottle, or how the mechanism of the injury impacted the hand at that point in time.
Ms. Heard's counsel made a point of emphasizing that there were no bruises or other injuries on the hand, right?
Correct.
And how does that fact affect your analysis, if at all?
Well, it doesn't discount anything, but it certainly makes other potential causes of injury more unlikely, meaning punching against a wall or getting the hand slammed in a door or something like that.
And your discussion of Ms. Heard's explanation of the alternative cause of the injury, was that based on anything other than Ms. Heard's statements?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Like,
Dr.
Lana,
you
you
have a seat
remember
before you're free to
when
go. Thank you.
Wes actually hit a wall
You can just leave it there. That's fine.
And he
Thank you,
just
sir.
broke his hand. Like, he didn't cut his finger.
All right. Your next witness.
Plaintiff rests, Your Honor.
All right. Plaintiff rests the rebuttal case. All right. Defendant counter plaintiff rebuttal case. Sure.
We're resting. Are we actually really done? Probably not. Probably Elaine will come with some. So, please explain, like the rebuttal witnesses. Are that witnesses that already testified and will be recalled even if you rest? Like, it's so weird, isn't it? Like, when you rest, don't you? And then you go over in, like, your closing arguments. Or does it work different? That's the same what happened with, do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth so help you God? Like, they have a whole other statement. Or is that just the movies? Who knows? Please. Did any of you actually ever served on a jury? This is really like, who do you believe and who not? Like, you just have. I think that's a bit scary as well. Like, they're supposed to be all experts and they're continue disagreeing with each other. It's like, oh, are you an expert? Or then if I was actually or watching this and I see the psychologist and psychiatrist and constantly contradicting each other, and when you're struggling and you're like, okay, I need some mental health help, and you see that kind of testimonies, you're like, maybe I'm good and fine. Like, I wouldn't go. Well, I think there were only one psychiatrist and one psychologist that actually makes sense in this whole case. And just because of their foundations. Like, if you do something, explain it. Why you did it, how you did it, what kind of assessments you used, or tools you used, or measurements you used, how you came to that conclusion. Like, that's a foundation instead of just talking a lot and sounding very intelligent, but there's no foundation. It's a bit with that Arnold's woman about Amber Heard damages. Like, you sound very clever and it sounds like you know a lot of it, but with all your numbers there is no foundation at all. So how did you come up with it? Okay.
All right. Rebuttal evidence.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Murphy.
We call Mr. Julian Ackert.
All right. Mr. Ackert.
So,
Yes, please.
what's rebuttal, people? I really have no idea, so if you know, please Please leave a comment and explain it to me.
In this case, the penalty of law.
I should have studied law. No, not really. Like, I have a lot of paperwork, that's worse.
Good morning.
Morning.
Can you please state your name?
Julian Ackert.
And can you please describe your educational background following high school?
And
I
there we
have
go.
a
again.
Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from the University of Virginia.
What is your profession?
I am a computer forensics investigator.
Where are you employed?
I work for a company called iDiscovery Solutions, or IDS.
And what is your title?
I'm a managing director at that company.
What services does IDS perform?
IDS provides consulting, expert testimony, forensic analysis, data analysis, electronic data review and
And
production
he will
services,
tell that the
all to the
photos
business and
are
legal
real.
community.
That she
What if any
just
of those
put it
services
in the
performed
edit
by IDS
program
that you perform?
to
I
store
perform
the
all of those
file.
services.
How many years of experience do you have in computer forensics investigation?
I've worked in the industry for 20 years.
Can you please describe that
That's
experience
less
to
than the
jury?
blow from yesterday.
I have experience creating and implementing data preservation and collection strategies, doing data collections in a forensically sound manner, extracting data from collections, as well as analysis and metadata analysis of the evidence that I extract.
You mentioned collecting data from forensic collections. What material are you forensically imaging?
This would be any type of material that stores digital evidence, an iPhone, an iPad, a tablet, a laptop, a cloud account, your Gmail account, anything that has digital evidence.
Have you published in your areas of expertise?
Yes, I've published on data preservation and collection and analysis strategies.
Have you ever given any trainings or presentations to other individuals in the e-discovery area?
Yes, I have. I do trainings and presentations to
so
lawyers through
Rebuttal
continuous
Witnesses.
learning education.
What, if any, professional certifications do you have?
I have a GIAC GCFE, that's
Yeah.
the GIAC Certified Forensic Examiner certification.
Well, this will go on and on what he did at school and how good he was. Anyway, so thanks, Lan. Like, I was Googling it as well. So it also like surprise witnesses. So normally you have the whole list about who is going to testify, because your defense need to actually know what's going on. And this one is a surprise one, so they actually couldn't do anything. According to Google, to Wiki. Wiki is saying that it's a surprise evidence or a surprise witness. Well, there you go. What's making it even more interesting?
Your Honor, I offer Julian Acker is an expert in the field of computer forensics.
No objection, Your
All
Honor.
right, so moved. Could you just spell your last name for me, Mr. Acker?
Ackert, A-C-K-E-R-T.
Thank you so much, sir.
Mr. Acker,
Yeah, but
what
you
is
should
forensic
have gone to
imaging?
law school.
Forensic imaging is the process of capturing the data on a digital device in a forensically sound manner.
And how is a forensic copy created?
Using specialized software that's available to forensic investigators, we're able to collect the data from devices, and that software may vary depending on the device, like a phone.
Almost would say
or a
saying that
laptop.
would be like a
What type
narcissistic
of
trait.
information does a forensic image collect?
It's meant to really collect everything on the
According
device.
to
So, for
Amber's
example, on a
witnesses,
laptop, it's going
anyway.
to collect your documents, your emails, your photographs, your documents like Excel spreadsheets, PDF files, any applications that you ran, the history of what you've opened or looked at on the laptop, as well as all of the metadata for these different types of electronically stored information files.
And does any other information accompany that information that's collected?
Typically with a forensic image, you're also going to get log files. Log files are files that help you validate the forensic image and verify that it was a forensically sound data collection.
And how do log files enable you to do that?
Log files list information within the files. Sometimes they're even embedded within the images themselves, but they provide verification information that allows you to authenticate the image and the data on the image.
What is the purpose of creating a forensic image of devices or data?
In order to extract and analyze data forensically for the courts, you need to create a forensic image of the data first and gather the data from the forensic image.
And what, if any, specific types of data are collected in that image and extraction?
It's going to be any type of data that comes from the image, whether you're extracting photographs or documents or spreadsheets or anything of that nature.
You want to bet that he's going to say that
recall
it's
Mr.
just
Neumeister
stored.
mentioning the term hashing yesterday?
I do.
What is that?
Hashing is essentially a digital fingerprint of a file. It's an evaluation of the binary ones and zeros, or how the file is stored on a hard drive, and it examines the ones and zeros in a manner that gives every file a digital fingerprint, essentially, and identifies the uniqueness of the file.
And what, if any, applicability does hashing have to the visual appearance of data?
Hashing has nothing to do with the visual appearance. For example, if I had a Word document that I printed and then saved, therefore I haven't visually changed the Word document.
You see, you already know what they're going to say as
indicating that I
well.
printed it would be different, and therefore that
I
Word
think
document
every
would not
bloody
hash the
expert,
version
and it doesn't
that
really matter on
that I
which
used
side.
before printing.
Can you give any
Although I
examples
think
of digital photographs that visually appear
The expert
same,
on
not
Amber's side
I believe Mr.
seem
Neumeister
more
included
smart
3 of those
and more
in his
arrogant.
demonstratives yesterday. 3 side-by-side
Then maybe I'm
photographs
just
that,
biased.
looked visually the same.
Like,
but
I
did not
came
hash.
into this trial really
It made sense that
neutral.
they wouldn't hash. Each of them had different file sizes. And
But-
a file size can change for a photograph depending on what you do with the photograph. So, for example, maybe you want to take that photograph and email it to somebody on
exactly.
your phone. You choose to use a small, medium, or large, or different size of the photograph when you email.
Well, that
When you
doesn't
send that
explain
email
that
with
you
that
have like
photograph, you
30
change the hash value
different
because you've changed the ones and
photos
zeros
of
because
just
you've
one
changed the
photo,
size
do
of the
you?
photograph.
With I don't know how many different
And
data, then you need to
What, if
save
anything,
it like
do you recall from
multiple
Mr.
times.
Neumeister's testimony regarding Photos 3?
Mr. Neumeister was concerned about a particular metadata field, EXIF metadata, which there's 2 types of metadata for files. There's the embedded metadata, which is what we're discussing here, the EXIF metadata, and external metadata. And Mr. Neumeister was concerned with embedded metadata within the file that indicated that the software version that the file last ran through was Photos.
What is Photos 3.0?
Photos is actually the software application that's built into the Apple Macintosh operating system for laptops. This is the application that launches by default when you're on an Apple computer and use Photos.
What are the capabilities of Photos 3.0?
There's multiple capabilities for it. You can, for example,
Store
create an album.
photos, there you
put
go.
multiple photos within an album. You can organize or sort your photos by date and time taken or place. You can also use that to edit photos.
Well, exactly, and I'm
You
missing what
mentioned
did he
metadata
say?
earlier.
The
What is that?
ISSF
Metadata
data
is
or something,
information
or
about a
ISP
file.
data?
For example, with a document, it could be when was the document created or last saved, or who saved it, who was the author of the document. For photographs, metadata includes information that you've seen on demonstratives before, including when was the image taken, what kind of phone took the image, what software was originally used for that image. Any type of information inside the photograph, the EXIF data that you've heard, is metadata.
Did you form any opinions in response to Mr. Neumeister's testimony regarding Photos 3.0 appearing in a software EXIF metadata field?
Yes, I did.
And what are those?
My opinion is that for each of the photos that he identified, for all but one in his demonstrative, I actually found the equivalent original photo that did not have photos in the EXIF metadata. In other words, those are the photos that he was indicated he would have expected to see the iOS or the phone software version on those photos.
That's the original
How
photo.
do you
If it's
know
been
it is
taken
an
with the
original
phone,
version of the
it
photograph?
should be given to him.
This is a little bit dependent
right?
on the Apple ecosystem. Amber uses Apple devices, and those devices, by definition of how Apple works, synchronize your information from device to device. So, for example, if you take a photo on your phone, you see that same photo on your tablet or your iPad or your iCloud account or even your MacBook. And that's all because of user
That's
experience. Apple wants you to be able to see and visually have the same experience on all your devices. So the photo that was originally taken traverses or gets synchronized to other devices by design of Apple.
But then
And
it
that
shouldn't
synchronization
have the
process
same
doesn't
color or
affect
not.
the metadata that we're talking about here, which is the embedded metadata.
When you say that a version of iOS software was listed in the software exif metadata field, what does that mean?
That means that the photo was not saved using the Photos application.
And what, if any, data sets did you use to come to that conclusion?
I used all of the data sets that I collected or were collected for Amber, including mobile devices, tablets, laptops, etc.
Michelle, can you please pull up Defendant's Exhibit 1671?
So tell me, how does the color move?
Do you
Like,
recognize
it's
this
the
chart,
same
Mr.
color, it just appears on several...
Without yet saying what it
If it's your tablet or your laptop or your, I don't
This is a
care.
chart I created as part of my report.
It would be the same
Honor,
picture.
permission to
It's
publish
not that,
Defendant
oh,
671 is a
there I'm a
demonstrative.
white
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right.
woman who's afraid to get sunburned to a person
Mr.
who is
Acker, can you please
actually
describe in more
sunburned.
detail
Like,
what
the
the
photo
information in
would
this
still
chart-
be
Michelle,
the
if you could
same.
stay at the
Doesn't
top
really
for a
matter,
quick second.
would it? Like, where
Further
does
up.
the color or the change in color come from?
Great.
Thank you. This chart represents for each of the items in Neumeister's report, which his demonstrative was based on, the page number of the item on his report and the items that I found on Ms. Heard's devices that did not indicate the software metadata field showing photos. Rather, they indicated that they were the original software metadata field of iOS.
And do you see the second column titled Neumeister Report Date Captured?
Yes, I do.
What does the information in that column mean?
This is the date-time metadata of the particular photo on Neumeister's report. So, for example, the first row, 23, the date-time captured, or the date captured is December 16th, 2015.
She could actually
The second
easily
row,
have
24,
given
you see that
him,
the date time
because
is
it's
May
her
21st,
witness giving the
2016.
original
Third
photo.
row, May 21st, 2016. Fourth row,
What will
May
show
21st,
it's
2016.
made by Apple.
Can you just scroll to the next page, please, Michelle? Please continue for the items on this page.
The top row of this page, the one that came from Neumeister's report, page 30, shows December 16th, 2016. And then finally, 32 shows March 23rd, 2013.
Do you see, can you scroll back to the top, please, Michelle? Do you see the, all the way to the top, I'm sorry, the right-hand column of this chart,
Yes, I do.
and where it says device ID and file name?
Yes.
Can you please explain what the information in that column means for each of the items identified from Mr. Neumeister's demonstrative?
So these are the evidence IDs, and evidence ID is the ID value I give to a particular piece of data that I collect, for example, a phone or a laptop, and the matching file name found on that evidence ID that indicated the original version of this same photograph that Neumeister identified that did not show photos in the software metadata and rather showed the iOS version in the metadata.
And what do the little A's followed by numbers back up, what does that mean?
Those are evidence IDs. Anything with an A number is the evidence ID of an actual device collected. Anything that starts with a backup and follows by another number is an iTunes backup.
So what, if any, what items in this right-hand column, based on the coding you have here, are iTunes backups?
Only the ones that start with the word backup. Even the ones that start with an A number are actually an iTunes or an iOS backup in iCloud. So your phone can actually be backed up to iCloud, and those are coming from an iOS backup in iCloud. Everything else is coming from an actual physical device.
Can you just take this down for a second, Michelle, and pull up 1675, please? Defendant 1675.
I really don't care about the data. I just want to know about how it is possible
And do you recognize this chart?
that you have the photos with
Yes, I
the
do.
Without
different
yet getting into
colors.
the contents, can you please
Like
describe
how?
generally what it is?
This is a chart that I prepared as a summary of my findings.
Permission to publish Defendant 1675 is a demonstrative, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, 1675 will be published as demonstrative.
I like it
Can you
when
please
they
describe in more detail
no
the
objections,
three columns you can see in this chart?
what do
present?
they
Sure, this
or
starts
where
to
do
give
they
some
come back
detail
with?
about the particular evidence ID. So, for example, A001 was an iPhone X of Amber's that was collected. A002 was an iPad of Amber's collected. A11, 12, and 13, slightly down, are 3 different laptops that were collected for Amber.
And do you see the IDS evidence number column?
Yes, I do.
Do you see the source type column
Yes, I do.
and the source details column?
Yes, I do.
Can you please describe what those columns mean?
Generally, the IDS evidence number is the evidence number that we assign to a particular piece of evidence, and the type and details come from a description of that type of evidence based upon the collection set.
And Michelle, can you please do a side-by-side of 1675 and 1671?
I'll mute him for a second. So, does that mean that she makes pictures with her, one with her laptop, the other one with her iPhone, the other one with her iPad, and the other one with her whatever she has more from iFloink? Like,
Pictures that Mr. Neumeister had specifically identified and the sources of where they were identified. So if you look at the first one, for example, the picture Neumeister referenced on page 24, or I guess that's the second one, there are equivalent versions or original versions of those that the software EXIF metadata field of photos. Rather, it shows the original iOS version on A001, which was Amber Heard's iPhone X, A002, which is Amber Heard's iPad Pro. Scrolling on down through there, you see it on A0011, which is Amber Heard's laptop, same with A0012 and 13. You can see this again with the next row that's visible at the very top. Neumeister identified a photograph on page 30 taken on December 16th, 2015. And he was concerned about the
then still,
EXIF
guys,
metadata of
shouldn't
that, showing
the color of the
software
photo
version of photos. The
be
original
exactly
versions
the
of those were
same
found
if
again
it's
on
on your
A001,
iPhone or your
that's her
iPad
iPhone X,
or your
A002, her iPad,
laptop
and
or
it's not
whatsoever.
surprising to me that I found all these on all the devices, because
Should
that's
be
how
the
Apple
same,
ecosystem
shouldn't
works.
it?
It replicates your pictures or synchronizes your pictures across your devices when you take them.
Mr. Acker, you can take this down, Michelle. Do you recall Mr. Neumeister's testimony regarding what he claims of EXIF metadata modification?
Yes, I do. This is a completely hypothetical scenario. Mr. Neumeister never specified any pictures with specificity that had EXIF metadata modification, and it's a hypothetical in my opinion.
Mr. Acker, did you form any overall conclusions in this case?
Yes, I did.
And what were those?
The images that were created in this case included log files that allowed me to validate and verify the evidence collected. I validated and verified the log files of the evidence for which I found Mr. Neumeister's original photos that he had concerns about, specifically the ones that had iOS in the software metadata field. I validated that those came from devices that had log files that were validated by me. In other words, they came from original evidence files, and in most instances, they came from more than one file.
Mr. Acker, the opinions you have testified to today made to a reasonable degree of forensic certainty.
Yes, they are.
So
No further
first,
questions, Your Honor.
All right. Cross-examination, sir.
you sit on your iPhone and you're like, oh, let's send this
Thank you, Your
picture.
Honor. Good morning, sir.
But then 2 seconds later, you go sit behind your laptop and
You've
like,
worked
I
with
will send the other.
opposing counsel's law firm approximately 20
My
times
brain.
before?
Give or take, yes.
For more than a dozen years?
Those 20 probably would have been spread out over more than a dozen years.
Okay. As you sit here today, you cannot testify that all of the photographs produced by Ms. Heard are authentic originals, correct?
Now, I can testify to the ones that Mr. Neumeister identified with specificity.
Right, but there were thousands of photographs provided that Mr. Neumeier didn't testify about, right?
I have no opinions on any photographs that the opposing expert has no opinions on.
All right. My question to you, though, is as you sit here today, can you testify that all the photographs produced by Ms. Heard are authentic originals?
As I sit here today, I cannot opine to photographs that have not been presented to me that are not authentic originals.
All right. You'll agree with me that in some instances, Ms. Heard produced multiple versions of the same photograph, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you just talked about it, right?
Yes.
All right. And you'll agree with me that the XF data of some of the photos produced by Ms. Heard reflect the use of a photo editing application?
No.
No?
I'll agree that they show the use of the Photos application, which is a sorting and editing application.
Okay, so what you were quibbling with is that it will both sort and edit.
That is correct.
Okay. Are you prepared to swear under oath that each and every photograph provided by Ms. Heard and entered into evidence in this court is an authentic original?
Based on the metadata that I have reviewed of the specific photographs I have reviewed, I can confirm that those are authentic original photographs. For the ones that Mr. Neumeister identified, I identified photos that were authentic originals.
No, I'm asking you a broader question than that. There were multiple photographs that Ms. Heard provided that were entered into evidence in this court. Are you testifying that those are each authentic originals?
I have no testimony or opinion on those because nobody's provided me opinion that they're not.
Okay.
So
Mr.
you
Gibson,
only
will you
change
pull
it
up
when
Defendant
somebody
Exhibit
says no.
712 and Defendant 713 next to one another. Your Honor,
I'm so
these have
confused.
already
Like,
been admitted,
I'm,
and I ask
I have to
that-
be honest.
Okay,
Like,
admitted.
I'm a total
Can you see
metadata
those
dummy.
pictures?
Really,
Yes, I can.
no idea.
You'll agree with me that those are different pictures?
Visually, they look different to me, yes.
All right. We can take that down.
Physically, they look different. Like, it's the same picture. They're just edited. Like even me as a dummy can see that. Ugh. There we go again.
Mr. Gibson, can you pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 1308? This has not been admitted, Your Honor, and I propose to use it as a demonstrative.
Any objection?
Not as a demonstrative, Your Honor.
All right. You identified and
But
published the
we
jury as
can
demonstrative.
see it.
Any objection to entering it into evidence?
I would object it's cumulative, Your Honor.
Why?
Actually, no. No objection, Your
No
Honor.
objection. All right, it's in evidence then.
1308 is in evidence. Mr. Gibson, can you blow up the time, date, and file name?
Uh-oh.
Sir, you just agreed with me that those two photos are different photos, correct?
I agreed that they were visually different, yes.
Right. So they are two visually different photos that were created at the exact same hour, the exact same minute, the exact same second as each other, correct?
And that's what the daytime metadata shows, yes.
And the metadata shows something else too. They have the exact
If I
same
have the
file
car-
name, don't they, sir?
Yes, I do.
Yes, but that's not embedded metadata.
Right. How would you have this jury decide which one is real?
I think you would need to look at the software metadata field, which I haven't looked at. I don't recall if I looked at for this particular field, but I think that's what even Mr. Neumeister said, that you need to look at the software metadata field.
But we have two photographs entered into evidence in this court that have the same identifying information, but in your view, look visually different, correct?
I don't agree that they have the same identifying information. I don't see a software metadata field here.
The identifying information includes the hour, minute, and second they were taken.
Laan, kun jij eens naar die link kijken?
I see that.
Gestuurd is?
No further questions.
All right, and just for the record, since we already have 712 and 713 in evidence as redacted, now this will be 712 and 713A. So 712A and 71213A are now in evidence, just to keep the record clean, okay?
I'm a woman.
Redirect.
Fuck, I have a white one.
Mr. Acker, you just mentioned embedded
I have a
metadata.
Santa
What is
Fe.
that?
Embedded metadata is metadata inside a file. I talked earlier about the date printed of a Word document. That's embedded into the file, and that traverses with the file wherever it goes.
And based on all of the photo metadata you have reviewed, do you have any reason to question the forensic authenticity of any photos Mr. Neumeister testified to for which you were responding to?
Can you repeat that question, please?
Yeah, based on all of the photo metadata you
He
have
can't.
reviewed,
Like,
based on the photos
he said
Mr.
it
Neumeister
yesterday as
testified
well.
to,
Like, you
do
can't
you have
say
any
it.
reason to question the forensic authenticity of those photos?
I do not.
Following your cross-examination, Mr. Acker, have any of your opinions in this matter changed?
They have not.
And is it still your testimony that the opinions you testified to do today are made with a reasonable degree of forensic certainty?
Yes.
No further questions, Your
All
Honor.
right, thank you. Sir, you can have a seat in the courtroom, or you're free to go. All right. Did you want to approach just for a moment?
Well, not to be a pain, but like I really don't know anything about data, metadata, insert data, other kinds of data, but like you can't tell me that if you look at those two pictures and it's the exact same time till the second that you actually will say, oh no, they're two different photos. Like, what? Really? No, I'm still working. So I'm working now, and then after this trial I have like 2 hours of relax, and then my normal work day begins. So wouldn't it then be easy to actually say that a photo is being tampered with? I really want to know, like, if you actually can see if... Well, we saw the difference in the photos anyway, so... But can you see that in... So... Which
All right, your next witness.
witness
Your Honor,
is
we would like
right?
to call Dr. Don Hughes to the
All
stand
right,
again.
Dr. Hughes.
No, please.
Thank you, Doctor. Just a reminder that you're still under oath, okay, ma'am?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
And could you please just remind the jury who you are again?
Sure, I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist. I am board certified in forensic psychology. I am the president-elect of the trauma division of the American Psychological Association. And I evaluated Amber Heard over 6 visits for approximately 29 hours.
And you did a great
Why
job.
are you here
Okay,
today?
now I can
To
talk.
offer rebuttal testimony to Shannon Curry's testimony of yesterday.
Okay. Now, Dr. Curry said you used improper methods. Would you agree with that?
No, I would not.
Why?
I agree.
Please explain.
As I testified to you all several weeks ago, I used a standard forensic procedure that is well established in our field. It is a multi-method multi-hypothesis driven procedure where you're looking at a variety of different details and tests and external data to arrive at an opinion, and you're looking at the consistency across that data. There are three sort of sets of tests that
Elizabeth
we use as forensic
still
psychologists, and I think that's where it seems that Dr. Curry seems confused. We have forensic assessment instruments. Those are instruments that are very neatly tied to a legal criteria. Those are most notably done in a criminal court for competency. If someone has competency to stand trial, we have very clear measures that can track that legal criteria. The next level are forensically relevant instruments. And those instruments are not linked to a specific legal criteria, but they do have information that's germane to that finding. And that can be an example of a risk assessment measure and a malingering measure. So the malingering measure that I utilized was the MFAST, and that was the only malingering measure in this case. The third category are clinical assessment instruments, and those are instruments that are validated and well-researched and used in the clinical realm as we understand people's symptomatology and diagnostic and functional capacities. Those are things like the MMPI, the PAI, the CAPS, the TSI, because they are clinically relevant and they still give us very valuable information to individuals who are involved in a court case. And the reason that we do that and we use these clinical measures is because the majority of the people that we see.
But then you should have used the CAPS first
so
and not the PCL5.
Well-researched methods. What we also
saying.
do is use a very different types of tests within that category. We use some checklists, some face valid checklists. We use some tests that are those broadband personality inventories. We use structured clinical interviews. And then we look for the consistency across those data points. And when we use different types of tests, it gives us information about the individual, how they go about these tests in these different modalities.
Now,
What
Dr. Curry seemed to
bullshit.
suggest that
Sorry.
Amber Heard tested the most extreme category in all of these different tests. Is that
No,
accurate?
that's not. Like
Objection compound.
bloody a
That is not
psychopath.
accurate. They were
That
not on
will
the
be
checklist. I mean, people
the
sometimes do. They go,
worst you
"All the
actually
time,
can
this happens to me
diagnose
all the
with.
time, frequently," and that is not how she endorsed these tests. She endorsed them in a very moderate way, in a very nuanced way, describing her symptoms that I determined was accurate and reliable.
Now, Dr. Curry also suggested that Amber Heard was tested
And
very,
this is
very
my
high,
field, so I
98th
actually know.
percentile, I think, on malingering and feigning. Could you speak to that, please?
Sure. So, I mean, she said a lot of things, so let's go through those tests. The first was the PAI, and that's that other broadband psychological
Objection
measure.
non-responsive.
I think it's very responsive.
Sustained.
Okay. Could you tell the jury about the PAI test that Dr. Curry
Yes, so,
addressed?
yes, thank you. So that's the broadband measure that has validity scales built into it that gives us indications about how the individual goes about the test. I told you last time that there was no evidence of malingering or exaggeration or feigning on that test. What Dr. Curry was talking about was this tendency to put your best foot forward, to minimize faults on this PAI. That scale was right at the cusp. And then there are two other measures that we look at that to say, you know, is this enough for an elevation for me to consider that as a serious response distortion, of which Dr. Curry was saying, and it was not. What was relevant on this test was there were elevations on anxiety, on affective anxiety, meaning anxiety, tension, worry, on traumatic stress, on
Just saying, people, but
hyperactivity,
have you
and
ever
on affective
seen
instability.
a
Those were the
person
four scales that were elevated
struggling
on this test.
with
The
anxiety and
borderline scale
PTSD?
was
You
not
actually
elevated
think
on
I
this
will
test.
walk
And
the
this
red
test-
carpet
Objection, Your Honor.
and
May
smiling
we
and
approach?
having fun? No way. And that's the same with the testing. There we go again. You have the assessment testing to actually see what's going on. Okay? Then you have the measurement to see how severe a disorder or an illness or whatever is. So let's say I'm doing the DAS 21. So seeing if you actually have anxiety and depression or one. And it comes out that you actually have depression out of the test. So that's the test, that's the assessment. So we will do a clinical interview with you to see if the answers you gave on the test actually are the same when we ask the questions, but in a different way. When it actually comes out that you have depression according to the test, then we are using the measurement. So what kind of depression do you have? Is it mild, is it moderate, or severe? All those questions are about depression, and that's the same with PTSD.
No, again,
all those questions are about
Dr. Curry
PTSD.
went back to, which is this 98th percentile, which I told you in the manual. All you have to do is read the manual. That we do not use the percentile ranks for this
because
test.
It's not a criminal
that indicates
case.
To me that, you know, Dr. Curry does not know the psychometric properties of this test, and then she then is therefore not qualified to interpret it. That
she is a
score,
forensic
the one that's
psychologist,
she's
woman.
talking about that percentile rank. Has
Like
a raw
how?
score. Amber's raw score
I'm
is a
sorry,
10.
I'm
the cutoff score is a 15.
screaming through it.
She's nowhere near that level of exaggerated symptoms where I can't further look at that test. Secondly, there are 3 scales out of about, maybe there's about 20, a little more on the TSI that were elevated. Intrusive experiences, that's when thoughts and memories of the trauma come into your mind when you don't want them. Defensive avoidance, sort of behavioral ways that we try to push out those memories and not think about them. And then relational avoidance, a way of having difficulty in interpersonal relationships. Those are all trauma-based symptoms, and those were elevated on this test.
Thank you.
So,
the MFAS, Dr. Curry addressed that as
problems
well.
in relationships. So you just came out of a domestic violence relationships, and a week later you have a new
So
boyfriend.
the MFAST, as I told you last time, is a measure of malingering. It's the only measure of malingering that was done in this case. Dr. Curry did not independently administer measure malingering, and there are other ones that she could
You're
have
not
done to
doing a
augment her
measurement,
evaluation.
woman,
And
because she
kept
doesn't
saying
go in
something,
therapy.
The MFAST is not for malingered PTSD. That's wrong on a couple of levels. People who are going to malinger and feign don't only feign one diagnosis. They sometimes talk about all different symptoms that they have, and they exaggerate and they make themselves seem much worse than they are. So when you're doing
Not
an
true as
evaluation,
well.
you're giving a malingering measure to get a sense of how this person is responding to this evaluation. Now, what you do is you take those 3 tests that I talked to you about, the PAI, the TSI, and the MFAST, all with valid validity scales, you have greater confidence in your results. And that is in the literature, and that's literature that Dr. Curry cited in her report. That bolsters the methodology that I used. That in the study that had the PAI, the MFAST, and the TSI in the title of detecting feigned from bona fide PTSD.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Curry also talked about the danger
I would
assessment
love to
scale
actually
and suggested that you had inappropriately interpreted that. Do you agree?
redirect
That's also
that one.
incorrect.
Please describe for the jury.
Which I told you last time, the danger assessment scale has statistically validated risk factors for serious or lethal domestic violence. Those risk factors exist whether we go forward, we're sitting with someone in an acute setting and assessing them right now, or if we look backward and we look retrospectively about what factors may have been present.
So
in
you're
the case
actually
that
asking
indicated
in the
severity.
test she is talking
That
about
instrument is used in what we
how
call those
dangerous
called
the
domestic
situation
fatality
is
review
in
boards.
the last
Those are boards
6
after
months.
somebody has been killed, a homicide has occurred in a domestic
Amber
situation.
wasn't
They look at these
there
risk factors
in
to
the
see
last 6
what was
months.
there
It
and what
is
could be done.
years ago.
Dr. Curry
So
also
that whole
criticized
measurement
your, administering of the CAPS
doesn't
5.
make any
Do you
sense.
agree with her criticisms?
I do not.
Will you please explain to the jury?
So the CAPS 5, as you all have heard multiple times, is a structured clinical interview in determining PTSD according to DSM-5 criteria. On this measure, Amber Heard scored in a moderate range. She did not over-exaggerate.
Well, it's a civil case, so they can actually say that
no, mild, moderate,
one of them
severe, and
will
extreme.
win it,
All of
but
hers
it's
were
also
either
not.
twos
It's not guilty or
ones
guilty. It's not a
zeros.
criminal trial.
Not above that.
The only thing
So
what
she's
they
scoring
can
in the
say
moderate range,
is
which still
how
has
much
functional
money
impairments. I mean, we
one
don't want
of
someone
the
to
two
be
will
having
get for
moderate
damages.
PTSD,
And
but
that
that's
can
not an
be 50 million,
exaggerated
but
profile
because
or
that they're suing
exaggerated
for, but they
response
also
style
can
of
say, oh,
someone
okay, you
who's,
get $500
answering an instrument.
or $1.
And the last of these Dr. Curry referred to was the PCL-5. Do you agree with her criticisms of your administration and interpretation of that?
No, so the PCL-5 is a checklist of symptoms of PTSD. It is, as she said, it is a face valid instrument. It means it's very clear about how you can endorse this. But what the person has to do is say, how disturbed am I by these symptoms? And when
But
you have
it's
face valid
all
measures with these other
PTSD
measures that
symptoms
have the
because it's a
built-in
measurement
sort of ability
symptom, woman.
scales, you're sort of
You
controlling
can't
for
say
that
that she
response
has a
bias
PTSD
error.
by
You're
a
controlling
measurement
for that
bloody test
individual
or
to sort of over-exaggerate.
test.
But then what you do with that test, because this is, we're not just administering them like robots, is you go and you do a clinical assessment.
Yeah, one of them will
That's
win.
what I did. I
And
took
then
what she
I
wrote,
think
what
the
she
jury can
endorsed on that
decide
test in January
how much
of
they will get.
2021, and I did a clinical assessment of those symptoms to see if they meet criteria for PTSD.
No, you
That
did
is
it
something
like
we do
10
clinically,
days
and I do in
later
my
when
office
you...
all the time.
Oh,
And yes, she
please.
did meet PTSD from that in January 2021.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Curry said you misinterpreted her test results. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree that I agree that I interpreted them, that she misinterpreted them.
Okay. And please explain that.
Yes, so I said that before. My stance on the MMPI and how she interpreted it is, I believe, wrong, and I think most...
Objection, Your Honor. All right. That's the issue we just addressed.
All right.
Well, I love it because she is actually wrong. If you make an assessment, you fill in every little box. That's what you do. You go to court. What's the foundation? Okay, I have done this, this, and this test. You can't leave questions open. You can't say, oh, how many times this or this. And she is using things what people use for therapy, okay? So if Amber had come to me and said, oh, I've been a victim to domestic violence, it's disturbing my life, I want to change.
Dr. Curry also testified
That's
that
when
a
I'm
victim of
using it.
PTSD has to effectively be prone and unable to function at all. Would you agree with that?
Objection misstates the evidence.
She said
A lot actually
they
do.
couldn't move, they couldn't function in any way, shape, or
overrule the
form.
objection.
Thank you.
No, that is not correct. That is often actually a myth and misconception about individuals who were struggling with
Nah,
PTSD or
the
trauma-based
judge doesn't have
disorders,
anything to do
and
with
I'm
that.
often called to answer that
That's
and speak
up
to
to the
that.
jury.
People who are
Only
struggling
in
with trauma
really
and PTSD
weird
are
cases
very
it happens
strong,
that the
courageous, resilient people, even
judge-
though that they're struggling. They get up, they have to go to work and drop their kid off at school and go to the market, even though they're struggling with these symptoms. So I often talk about it as this sort of walking around with a 50-pound bag of flour on their backs, just sort of trying to get through the day, where sometimes that button's going to press play and the trauma's going to start activating in their head, and then they're going to be having to think
Has
about
she
it and
ever
have startle
talked
and
to
have
a person or a
physiological
victim of
reactions
domestic
until they
violence?
can find a way to hit that pause
Yes.
and shut it off again. So they still have, impairments in other ways, but they go about their lives. They're not, totally debilitated. If you have someone in that high range, the highest score is an 80 on the CAPS. Ms. Heard had a 28. If you have someone in the higher range, we have seen people who are, severely disabled because of it, but that's not the norm of people who have this moderate PTSD.
And did you find functional impairment with Amber?
Yes, I did.
Now, Dr. Curry also
No,
said
because it's
that
not a criminal
it is not
case.
within the scope of a psychologist to evaluate domestic violence. Do you agree with that?
Of course I don't agree with that. This is what I do for a living, day in, day out, for
Well-
25 years. We are specifically trained to understand the profound impact that trauma has on people's lives. That's what we do in the
Yeah,
trauma
but you
division of
just
the
said
American
that people
Psychological Association. We
struggling with
disseminate that
PTSD
knowledge.
have
And
a
domestic
normal life
violence
because they're
is one of those
resilient. No,
profound
that's
traumas.
not how it
Domestic
works.
violence is part of state licensing boards, that you can't get licensed in some states unless you take training on domestic violence. You can't renew your license unless you get training on domestic violence. So people who have, specialized training in this area, it is, beholden upon them to accurately assess for intimate partner violence and sexual violence. And it's more important to assess for this sort of scientific understanding of what domestic violence is. So you
No,
have to assess
but
for the
a
physical
judge
violence,
only
the
can say you
psychological
need
violence,
mental
the
help
surveillance, the economic,
the
the emotional
moment
abuse,
Amber
and
was
the
in
sexual
a
violence. That is not
criminal case,
gratuitous.
for
That is
example.
understanding.
But then
All right. Next question.
she would be found not guilty
Now, Dr.
because of
Curry suggested
insanity,
that
and she
you
would have to
made a
go into
determination
therapy.
just based on
In
personal
this case,
opinion
it's
and
not
just
about that.
on
It's not about
checklists
her mental
and a
health
couple of
at the
tests that
moment.
you
It's about the
misinterpreted. Would you
bloody
agree with that?
op-ed and the
I
Walkman
vehemently disagree with that.
case.
As I stated to you, over 29 hours and 12 psychological tests and reviewing a
It's
slew
not
of
tests,
documents
woman.
in this
It's
case, and
measurements.
most importantly, therapy records and interviews, collateral interviews with therapists. Using all that data, that is what a solid forensic methodological
And this kind
exam
of
looks like. And then I
psychologists
made my conclusions
actually
based on my
ruin
clinical
it
education,
for a lot
knowledge,
of
and
people.
training to come up with a professional expert opinion.
And just to remind,
Like the
to
test,
make
you
sure
have
we're
to do
reminded here,
first to
you were
actually see
qualified
if a
in this
person
court in
is
this
having
case as an
PTSD
expert
or any
in
other
forensic psychology,
disorder.
specifically in domestic violence.
She doesn't do for years. Like you're doing first, you're doing a measurement,
and in violence, correct?
a measurement
And in
test.
trauma, correct?
How
But
severe
I-
something
Your
is,
Honor,
while
misstates
you're
the
not
record.
even sure.
If you want to ask the question.
She actually has it.
Yeah, I probably should do that.
Please
Um,
enlighten
You
me how
were
that works.
qualified. I gotta find my note.
Well,
You were
maybe you
qualified as an expert in forensic psychology with a specialty in domestic violence and in trauma, correct?
Correct.
Well, then you're doing
That
a
was in
bloody
this case.
lazy job.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, do you still hold the same opinions you did that you gave the jury earlier?
Yes, I do.
And do you still hold them within a reasonable degree of psychological probability and certainty?
Absolutely
do.
not.
Thank you.
All right, cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor, but can we approach quickly?
Sure.
That woman makes me so angry. Like, at least, like, there is no foundation she gives again. Like, okay, you did these kind of tests. Why did you do it? Why did you start it with the measurement test instead of the test what actually show what people might have? Like, we have really global tests that can show. And then why are you using tests if somebody is actually coming for you to therapy? Why not using forensic tests? Because they're different. They're completely different because we actually don't think that when a person is coming to us asking for help because they're actually really struggling with a life. And like 90% of people with PTSD are really struggling with a life, and they're not like, oh, I have to bring my children to school and it just feels like a bunch of flowers on my back. No. So. Oh.
Good morning, Dr. Hughes.
Good morning, Mr. Dennison.
The last time you were here, I believed that you testified that you had diagnosed Ms. Heard with PTSD before you gave the gold standard CAPS-5 test.
That's correct.
Right.
How?
And that
You
diagnosis
see what I mean? How?
is actually reflected in the first of the disclosures you put forward in this case.
I believe the first disclosure was February 2021, and at that point I had done 11 psychological tests. That's correct.
Measurements. Different.
Your disclosure reads, Ms. Heard's responses on the PCL-5 support a DSM-5 diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder with an etiology of intimate partner violence she experienced by a former partner. Remember writing that?
That's correct.
Okay. You just testified that you need to read the manual, right?
Yes.
Okay. Can we put up 1311 as a demonstrative?
That's a big book, people. Or. And then the tests
Any
aren't
objection to 13?
actually in the DSM-5 anyway. Like we have tests that are specially made to connect with the DSM-5, but we have the symptoms, the codes, what we use, and that kind of things. That's in the DSM-5. Standing somewhere. I even wouldn't call her again. Like, why would you do this? Because she is wrong. And the jury knows that as well. Like, why would you first give a measurement test?
Thank you.
And not the test to actually see what she has? Because she already knows what to answer and what not. That's what I said. It's all PTSD related.
Yeah, we got it.
And you just say, oh,
13, 12.
none, mild,
13,
moderate,
12.
or severe. That's
Okay.
it.
And that, any objection to that demonstrative?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, 1312 can be published to the jury.
Dr. Hughes, do you recognize what the National Center for PTSD is?
What it is?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
And they publish the PTSD checklist for DSM-5,
That's correct.
that what we've been calling the PCL-5.
Correct.
All right. And are you familiar with the document that's on your screen?
Yes.
All right. What is it?
It's the instruction manual to how to administer the PCL-5.
Okay.
With test.
I'd like to move for the admission of 1312.
Any objection to 1312 coming into evidence? All right, 1312 in evidence.
Can we go to the second page? Can we blow up the second paragraph on the right?
There we go.
That's the PCL-5 should not be used as a standalone diagnostic tool. When considering a diagnosis, the clinician will still need to use clinical interviewing skills and a recommended structured interview, e.g., the CAPS-5, to determine a diagnosis, correct? That's what the manual says.
Right, and this manual
Okay.
also says that this is a screening instrument, so when you do the clinical interviewing, you absolutely can determine diagnosis
So
after
the answer is
somebody
yes. The manual says you
still
the
need to use
PCL-5
clinical interviewing
No.
skills, which I used.
Well, let me finish my question.
But you didn't
The
use
PCL-5
the
should not be
test.
used as a standalone diagnostic tool, and they recommend
Just a
using
yes
the
or no.
CAPS-5
Can we
to
use
determine
that
the
now?
diagnosis,
Just
correct?
a yes or no.
It does say that, yes.
Yeah, and you made your diagnosis before you did the CAPS-5.
I made my diagnosis doing clinical
That's a
interviewing
yes or
and
no.
11
Do the
other
yes or no.
psychological tests that supported diagnosis of PTSD and symptomatology consistent with PTSD.
No, it did
Okay.
not.
You said that we should read the manual. Would you also agree with me that we need to read the directions on these tests?
Sure.
Okay. Tom, can you pull up 1309 as a demonstrative?
That will probably like you need to answer every question in the bloody test. And if not, your score isn't really validate, or you need to use
Yes,
a complete different calculation system. What she didn't do.
Any objection of 1309?
Also
is
not
demonstrative?
calculation, so you get a completely different. Let's say you have 30 questions and you answer 15. Then, but all 15 are in the severe area, severe or moderate. So your outcome will be completely different than when you actually answer all 30 questions. So even there are some people, you have questions and some people just don't know
Publish the jury as
how they feel. Like PTSD is really complex.
Doctor, do you recognize the demonstrative that's in front of you?
Yes, but I didn't put the red lines on that.
No, I didn't.
Yes, I know.
Okay. So this, what do you recognize this as?
I recognize that we previously discussed this, and I told you that I oriented Ms. Heard to a different time frame because she was already out of the relationship.
Exactly.
Okay,
Then you don't
maybe we should
use
back
the
it up
score.
a little. This is the CTS-2 that you administered as part of this battery of tests that you indicate you did in relationship to
No,
your
I'm not a
diagnosis.
Right, this
psychiatrist.
is the
I'm a
conflict tactics scale, too.
psychotherapist
And you'll agree with me
and
that this
behavioral
test
analyst.
specifically asks
So I
in front of
study
every
psychologist,
single question,
clinical
how
psychology,
often did this happen
forensic
in the
psychology,
past year?
and then
Correct, and I
behavioral
oriented the
analysis
individual
and
to not limit
profiling.
herself to the
Correct.
last year to get an accurate assessment of the violence
And now I'm
abuse that she
working as a-
experienced in the relationship.
Objection, Your Honor, move to strike.
All right.
thing.
Oh,
So
you
now I'm
strike the
working
last
as a
part of the answer.
psychotherapist
I'm gonna
and
strike the last part of the answer.
counselor
Thank you.
because I have more
Next
time
question.
Yeah.
for
And
the people
you know
actually
that
coming
at
to
the
me.
time that you gave this
Without,
test to Ms. Heard,
Um,
she had been away from
like I
Mr.
don't
Depp
like how
for
the
far
cluster
longer than a year,
works
correct?
Which
in
is why I
psychology
oriented her to
at
a
the
different
moment
Yes or
because
no?
the
time
waiting
frame in
lists
answering the
are too
question.
Doctor,
long.
yes or no?
So, of course,
Okay. You knew
So
she
people who
was
actually
gone
really
for-
need
of
help
course.
can't get the help.
Let's look at
So
another
I
one.
decided to actually and do the chatting mental health, so we can support people, give them more information, or help people when they really need to. And now I have more
You
time
talked
to
about the
actually
danger assessment test.
work
That's correct.
with people who really need it. But psychiatrists actually went to medical school. I never went to medical school.
What number is this?
But
13.
I did
13,
forensic
10.
psychology as well. So
Thank you.
we use different
Any
tools.
objection to 13?
Like now when I give therapy,
no,
I'm
just-
using
okay.
different tools than
Publish to the jury.
when you actually go to court and you look at the forensic side of things. Because people want to
Dr.
get
Hughes,
something when you have to go to court.
This is a blank form, but this is the danger assessment test that you also gave to Ms. Heard, correct?
I didn't give it to her. I filled it out based on the data that was provided to me.
Oh, so you asked her the questions and then you filled it in.
It was somewhat collaborative.
Okay. Can we blow up the second full paragraph? It says, using the calendar, please mark the approximate dates during the past year when you were abused by your partner or ex-partner. You didn't use any calendar, did you?
I did not use a calendar because she was already out of the relationship. As I said, these are static risk factors, so they don't change. So I oriented her to the
What?
time of the
What?
relationship.
Ma'am, it's fair to say that this examination that you gave specifically
It's
indicates
really
that
about
it's-
if the
that you were supposed
person
to
who
look
came
over the
out an
past
IPV
year. And
or
you-
domestic
That's
relation,
one, that's one
still in
administration.
danger.
People use this instrument for if you're in an acute situation in a relationship, trying to get a better assessment of the current behavior.
No, you
We can
try
use it
to get the people
retrospectively, like I
out
just
of the
stated,
situation
and
they're in.
homicides and looking back about what are the serious risk factors that were in this relationship.
I didn't ask you about anything other than
We
don't
want,
the
when we do this
instructions
test, that
limit this
victims
test
see
to the previous year.
how serious
give
and
this
how
test not
dangerous
only
the
on the previous-
situation
asking you
is
about the
when
instructions.
where
But I'm
they're
telling you
in
how the
at that
test is
moment.
administered in clinical
That's
practice
when
and
we're
in forensic
using
practice.
a danger assessment,
Opposing
not
counsel can come up and ask
to
questions about it.
conclude
I'm
if
asking
she
you about the
came
instructions.
out of
And the
an
instructions
IPV
say,
or domestic violence
Look over the
relationship.
past year.
Yeah, on this, yes, that it says that.
And you had actual knowledge when you gave the test that Mr. Depp was gone way more than a year before this test.
That is correct.
Right. All right. Let's look at more instructions. Can we look at 1247, which is already in evidence? Dr. Hughes, you recognize this one too, right?
Yes,
All right. This is what everybody calls the CAPS 5.
correct.
All right, can we go to the first page? Let's blow up the instructions. Standard administration and scoring of the CAPS 5 are essential for producing reliable and valid scores and diagnostic decisions. Correct?
Correct.
And you know you have to do this in a standardized way because it is the first instruction, correct?
Correct.
Can we go to the next,
We already went through this, like in the first time. This is such a waste of
That's good.
time.
This is a page on scoring, and we talked about this last time.
Yes.
You score these tests by frequency and intensity.
Correct.
And you'll remember that in every single instance that you were asked to fill in the blank about frequency, you failed to do so, correct?
That's not correct.
Oh, you filled in any blank on this form with respect to frequency?
I filled in the frequency on the side of the caps where I am actually scoring the caps.
No, I asked
Where
you
it's
whether
relevant.
you filled in a single blank on this form with respect to frequency. Is the answer to that yes or no?
I don't know what you mean, a single blank.
All right, let's keep going. All right, we'll stay at this page for a second. This is the very first box you're asked to fill in as to, I think, a fairly fundamental question, right? What happened?
We talked about this before, Mr. Dennison. I had 88 pages of notes of what happened. It would have been redundant to put it there.
You know that you are obligated to produce this test in a way that other people can meaningfully review them. Yes?
The people in this case who are meaningfully reviewing them have my 88 pages of notes.
All right, but you chose to put absolutely nothing in the box, the standardized box, that said what happened.
You don't have to put it in the box if you have it somewhere else. It's
Because
not a,
this
if
is
it's
not
not
a standardized test?
Well, if it's not a research instrument that is used for research, if you're using it for a clinical diagnostic purpose, no, you don't. If you have that data elsewhere.
Okay, let's go another page or so.
You can actually ask the question quite simple, like when you go actually to a clinical interview.
Let's go another one.
In your clinical notes, you will go into the details. This is just
Let's look at item
standard.
4B4.
How many times, how, what, with who. Easy
And I
ones.
asked you, you filled in the blank about frequency. And there's a blank in many of these items that asks number of times. You didn't fill a single one of them in, did you?
Right, because I filled them on the right side of the instrument where I am scoring it.
And that is the way that you believe that you followed the instructions of a standardized test.
Yes, correct.
No further questions.
All right, redirect.
Very briefly. Static risk factor, what did you mean by that?
Static risk factors are risk factors that don't change. It's maybe if you smoke cigarettes, you may have a risk of lung cancer, right? That's a factor that doesn't change. You can look forward if someone's smoking, you can look past if someone's smoking. So these lethality risk factors are present whether you're evaluating them in the last year or 5 years ago.
And when you're trying to assess for trauma related to the interpersonal
It doesn't
violence
have to
that we
do
discussed,
with immediate danger.
why is it important to get a time frame in which the relationship was in existence?
Well, you want to see the amount of trauma that the person experienced. The longer that they're in a relationship, you have more successive trauma. And one of the things that we know from the research is more trauma is not better. So the more successive traumas that you have, the greater likelihood that somebody's going to have psychological consequences and symptomatology as a result.
And therefore, you need to get it within the relationship.
Objection leading.
What?
And
So
how
what
does
if you're
that
in a car accident
relate
and you
to
have
needing to get the
PTSD
time
from
frame
that?
in the
Like
relationship?
what?
Well, you need to understand the when you're trying to evaluate the impact of something, you have to understand what happened to the person, and that's sort of the core and the basis of trauma-informed care
But
and
you
of trauma
don't
diagnosis.
do
You
that
have to
with an
understand,
assessment
the
from
traumatic
immediate
event
danger.
and how it transpired and how it played out for that individual, so that you can better assess for the symptomatology that's falling from it.
You said you had 88 pages of notes. What were in your 88? And without going into the specifics, can you
You're
just describe
testing,
what
like,
was included in the 88 pages of notes?
88 pages.
In the 88 pages
For a
were
test.
many of the documented incidents of intimate partner
Objection, Your
violence.
Honor.
She's just describing it. That came up. He said you didn't fill those in the boxes. She said it was in my 88 pages. I'm just saying what was in your 88 pages. I'm not asking her to give each of the
If you have the
specific
score
events,
for
she can describe
88
the summary
pages,
of
no
it.
you don't. You put
Can we come
this
up?
in like clinical notes, okay? You do your interview, things are coming up, you get evidence, you probably will show pictures with metadata, what didn't change, or they actually changed, or the color stayed the same, doesn't matter. You don't use that in a test, okay? We want to know the really specific times, okay? How much time? So maybe 20, maybe 50.
What is the difference between
And we see how
clinical
people react.
scoring and clinical evaluation and research evaluation with respect to the CAPS-5 and the other tests?
It's in compound.
Sustained.
Your Honor, when it's compounded,
She really
it's very
doesn't
confusing
like
to the jury.
Johnny's lawyers, believe me.
Sustained. Next question.
Okay. Can you explain to the jury what the difference is between clinical scoring and evaluation on a test and research?
Objection, Your Honor, compound.
Overruled. Good.
Sure. So the PCL and the CAPS-5 are frequently used in research. And when they're used in research, that means the document stands alone. They don't have 88 pages of notes to help understand the background of the trauma and what the person has experienced. And why those boxes may be relevant in research is because, back in the day when I was a research assistant, I had to input that into the computer. And then they would maybe look at some of that data for the research study. So that becomes very important in research.
All right. Thank you. I have no further questions.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Hughes. You can have a
Thank
seat in
you.
the courtroom or you're free to go, okay?
Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take our afternoon recess. Our morning recess. Let's take our 15-minute recess. Do not discuss the case with anybody and don't do any outside research, okay?
To do more research, and especially when you go to court, it's interesting. It's not interesting in your tests. No, and using measurement testing before actually testing to actually see what's going on with a person is not okay. When you have forensic files, and this is it, like she is a forensic psychologist. Amber didn't come to her to say, oh, I'm struggling with my life, I need help. Then it would be completely different. Now she's going to court. When she's going to court, she needs something, okay? So we are very careful when we're doing testing. We're really thorough in doing testing in that case because you don't want to be wrong. Well, it's hard. Like, I think Johnny is really lucky because of the public opinion. So the moment it is actually clear that, and you never can say things with 100% certainty, okay? So, but we actually witnessed that there were a lot of lies. And we're not the only ones who've seen that. So he is very, very liked by the public. And the moment that movie makers and directors actually are seeing this, they will be like, well, okay, he's liked by the public. We don't really think he hit her or physically abused her. They can say, like, okay, if you want to do a movie and put in his contract, like, okay, but if you use alcohol or drugs, you're out. That kind of things. So I don't think his career is really over. Her career, however, well, she isn't really liked by the public. And that will be a problem. Like, if a movie is coming out and she is playing a role in it, a lot of people will boycott the movie. So movie makers will know that as well. So I don't think it will impact his career too much, but this has to stop. Like, if this shit is going on, then it will really will be a problem. Well, the moment, actually, to be honest, when Amber came out in 2016, she went to a couple of therapists. What I think it's funny, like, there were a lot of therapists, psychotherapists, psychologists, counselors, that she actually looked for help, or actually saying that she needed help. But the only thing what's in the notes, oh, Amber came to us and she told us that she was abused by Johnny Depp. Not really about therapy notes. Like, how many therapy notes are there? So that was the only thing. And it's like, well, she just went from counselor to therapist to actually say that she was abused. And when I get people who are coming out of an IPV or domestic violence relationship, they not really saying, oh, I got abused. They start saying what they are actually struggling with. Like, when they see a man or a woman who look like the perpetrator, or like if they see or they smell or they think about something and it's coming back. So the behavior of the victims is completely different. You see a lot of mixed emotions, and I actually saw that yesterday, for example, when Johnny was on the stand, like the mixed emotions, the confusion, sadness, anger. So everything is just going through your head. And that's how you respond to it as well, because it's unfair. There's no justice in what somebody is actually doing to you. So you're angry about that, but then you're confused as well, like, why is that person doing that? Then comes the sadness, because there was a moment you actually loved the person. And I think the biggest issue, what you really saw between Johnny and Amber, was when they were talking about good times in their relationships. Because Amber was like smiling, and oh, he was beautiful, and it was magic, and it was like bloody fucking the Cinderella musical. And the birds start chirping, and it was like, what, really? Because, and you saw that yesterday by Johnny, when they were actually talking about their honeymoon, even when it was a good time, he still was sad. Because the memory and the feelings of the domestic violence, about of the control, don't let you feel that, oh, it was great. No. It keeps you really down. You remember it, but you don't smile about it. You don't laugh about it, because that was actually a moment that things were good, but you know how it ended. So you're not sitting there with the blue birds on your shoulder saying how beautiful your relationship was. No. 15 minutes, okay. So, really sorry to hear you were in a domestic violence relationship. So yeah, like a lot of things are traumatizing, and I think that is one of the biggest things that when we actually talk about a disorder, is that when you are really struggling with your day-to-day life, a really change in the behavior, like how you were before a traumatic event or after a traumatic event, and like how I see it, and that's just my opinion, okay, and probably experience as well. I couldn't look directly for very long, like maybe directly just to show that maybe after years I'm not really afraid, but the fear will always be in you, okay? But I couldn't stare to a person who actually really sexual assaulted me and abused me, physical and mental, and look at it and just smile when I hear him talking about it or denying things. I would be hurt. Okay, it would hurt me to hear him say those things, and probably unbelief as well, because yes, it did happen. I wouldn't sit there like, no. So there are a lot of things that doesn't make any sense, and of course everybody is different. Everybody is experiencing trauma different as well, but the global feelings are quite the same. And it also depends what kind of trauma you actually went through. Okay, because you hear a lot that they're saying, oh, PTSD this and PTSD that, but PTSD is very, very big. Okay, it's all the traumas. And then you have PTSD, and somebody actually on the witness stand said, oh, it's repeating drama. No, it's not. It's PTSD is one event that's traumatizing. Complex PTSD is a repeating pattern of trauma. So that can be child abuse, that can be a sexual assault by somebody you actually know, domestic violence, but take for example a natural disaster. Well, that will be a PTSD experience because it's once, if you're lucky. Okay, when you're unlucky, it can go into a CPTSD. So there's a big difference there as well. Like, and that's why you don't use the PCL5 as a first test to actually see how severe something is, because it's related to a lot of PTSD traits. So yeah, of course you would be scared. And I think the funny thing is when we saw Johnny actually testifying yesterday, and what Amber tried but not really did it, is when he's actually talking about the experience, is that he is closing up. So he is getting smaller in the stand. When her lawyers are actually saying it didn't really happen, he is getting angry because it actually did happen. Where Amber didn't really get angry, she got more arrogant. And you saw the contempt for Johnny Depp's lawyers. Well, that's the thing. Like, the mental abuse is there. Like, I don't think Johnny is a really fun guy to be around when he is really drunk and high on drugs. And I think when you hit his buttons, and that's another thing. Like, when does he actually become violent? What do you say? You know, and then he can redecorate a house. But why does he do that? And I think it's a toxic relationship anyway. Like, you have a person who can't handle the liquor, and then you have a person who loves control. And that's what you see, because she's actually looking at him constantly. And when you actually have a look at a criminal case, when you have a criminal and you have a witness who have to testify, they actually look at that person and try to control it and try to get that fear what they once had in there again, so they won't say that much. So no, I don't think they're both innocent. I do think that there is a difference. Like, if she had come out and saying, oh, he is a drunk and using drugs, and he is like verbally saying things to me, and I just couldn't handle, so I got out. That's different. Then people would say, okay, I understand. Nothing would have happened with her career. She and Johnny would go their own separate way, and that's it. But saying that somebody assaulted you, especially sexual assault, like, let's be honest, sexual assault is the lowest you can do. Okay? The lowest you can do. And the way how she say it with bottles, and I don't know, like, come on, man. Like, that is a different level. So, that's the problem. Like, she could have been honest and just saying, oh, it didn't work. But in this case, I really think, like, oh, you wanted to destroy him. Like, I wouldn't have made that video if I was a domestic violence victim or an IPV victim, okay? I would be so scared when he is that drunk. Because if Johnny had hit her, she knows she will get it. So I would be out of there. Like, I'm not going to put my video there on my phone, like, oh, there you go, and put my coffee cup, and then, nah. Yeah, I would bloody shit myself if he is in a state like that, and I know I will get smashed. Oh yes, she's claiming sexual assault as well, with a bottle. And I think not even once, but twice or something. Guys, I will be right back, going to grab a drink very fast. The clock will be on, so I hope I will be back in time. Don't go away, we talk about that later. Or grab a drink as well. I see you in a second.
All right, are we ready for the jury? Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. We're back. Oh, coffee. So what's the time by you? I was thinking, what's that on her head? The
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated. All right, your next witness.
Your Honor, defendant calls Amber Heard.
All right, Ms. Heard, if you could come to the stand, please. Yes, ma'am. Water. All right. Thank you, ma'am. And just a reminder, you're still under oath, okay?
Of course, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, your question?
and there's Camille.
Amber, just to orient you and the jury, at this time, we are in the rebuttal to your counterclaim against Mr. Depp. So I'm going to confine my questions to that, okay?
All right.
How have you suffered publicly as a result of the Depp-Waldman statements?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled. I am harassed, humiliated, threatened every single day. Even just walking into this courtroom, sitting here in front of the world, having the worst parts of my life, things I've lived through, used to humiliate me. People want to kill me, and they tell me so every day. People want to put my baby in the microwave, and they tell me that. Johnny threatened, promised me that if I ever left him, he'd make me think of him every single day that I lived.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
All right, I'll sustain the objection as to that, if you want to ask the question.
Amber, how did Mr. Depp's statements and threats to you that you were discussing, how do those continue to manifest themselves today?
In the harassment and the humiliation, the campaign against me that's echoed every single day on social media and now in front of cameras in this room. Every single day I have to relive the trauma. My hands shake. I wake up screaming. I have to live with the trauma and the damage done to me. My friends have to live with a set of unspoken rules about how to not scare me.
Objection, hearsay.
Yes, sir. Unspoken rules. Overruled. Go ahead. About how to not touch me, not to surprise me. My intimate partners have rules about how they can deal with me, how they can touch me. I have rules.
She didn't
for
really have
doctors,
problems in that
professionals I
elevator,
see,
did she?
gynecologists I see. I live my life with these sets of rules that I have to follow, my friends have to follow for me not to have a panic attack or a triggering event where I relive the trauma. Even if I'm training to do my movie, for instance, if I'm training for Aquaman, a combat scene and a trigger happens, I have a meltdown and have to deal with that. The crew I work with have to deal with that because of the damage I walk around with every single day from what I've lived through, from what I've survived. I'm not sitting in this courtroom snickering. I'm not sitting in this courtroom laughing, smiling, and making snide jokes.
What?
I'm not. This is horrible. This is painful. And this is humiliating for any human being to go through. And perhaps it's easy to forget that, but I'm a human being. And even though Johnny promised that I deserve this and promised he'd do this, I don't deserve this. I want to move on. Those statements, the attacks on me, the campaign, that Johnny has elicited millions of people to do on his behalf when he himself
Objection, Your Honor,
couldn't do
lack
it.
of foundation.
Torture me every day.
Speculation.
I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Amber, how have the Depp-Waldman statements impacted your ability to do charitable work?
You know, the only reason that people like Dr. Kirby can sit up here on the stand and say I'm high functioning and I do things like have hobbies and have interests is
Objection,
because I'm not.
non-responsive.
Your Honor, Mr. Depp gave long-winded responses yesterday.
Overruled, good. It's because I found a solution to that pain. I woke up every morning with panic attacks and trauma until I realized I could do something with it. So to answer your question, Ben, I was able to turn the things that I've lived through, my pain, my life experiences, into work, into action, into providing a voice for other people. I'm not a saint. I'm not trying to present myself as one, as you all know, but I selfishly found relief in being able to use what I've lived through to advocate for others,
to bring light to these issues, to give a voice to people who don't have the voice and the platform that I have. And while I would not wish this situation on my worst enemy, if it gives a voice to someone who doesn't have it. But I now, as I stand here today, can't have a career. I can't even have people associate with me because of the threats and the attacks that they have to endure.
Objection non-responsive.
Because of
And I can't do my charity work.
Sustain the objection.
Amber, other than the threats that you've described, what other...
You know how
threats
calm
have you
she is
endured
every
since the
time
Depp
there's
Woman
coming a
statements were
question, and when you're actually really upset, your
I received
breathing is going like...
hundreds of death threats.
Like, where's that?
Regularly,
Like,
if not daily. Thousands
or is that
since this trial
like...
has started. People mocking my testimony about being assaulted. Making fun of my...
Objection relevance. Non-responsive.
Goes to damages. You can continue.
It's been agonizing, painful, and the most humiliating thing I've ever had to go through. I hope no one ever has to go through something like this.
Well, he agrees with that. Did you saw that? That was the face like, yeah, I agree with that.
I just want Johnny to leave me alone. I just want him to leave me alone.
Well, you started it. Like, if you want a person to leave you alone, you will just move on with your own life, and
All right, I'll sustain the objection.
you wouldn't.
Next question.
What do you hope to reclaim after this is over?
Protecting the secret that I did for as long as I did has taken enough of my voice. Johnny has taken enough of my voice. I have the right to tell my story. I have the right to say what happened to me. I have the right to my voice and my name. He took it long enough. I have a right as an American.
What?
To talk about what happened to
Go
me.
Biden.
To own my story and my truth. I have that right. I hope to get my voice back. It's all I want. And I've said that from day one.
Thank you, Amber. I don't have anything else.
All right, cross-examination.
Go on, Camille. There we go. You don't have tears, girl. Put the tissue away.
Actually, Your Honor, may we approach her
Yes,
briefly?
yes.
Uh-oh. So when the question was about the careers, like, Alana, I changed my mind. I don't think you should go into law school. I think you should be an actress. And can you actually imagine that there are women and men going through IPV, domestic violence, and how hard it is now for them to actually speak out? How hard it is for them to actually want to have that voice and will be actually associated with lies that we heard in this trial. How afraid are they now to actually come forward because, oh, what happened if they actually don't believe me? And if you're that upset and crying, and you relive that trauma because that's what you're thinking, you have that constantly. It's not that you're totally upset when somebody asks you a question, and then when the question is finished and you answer the question, and then in the end of the question you're like and that's it, and then your face is in. No, you go through this emotion all the time. She should be like sitting there at this moment like like it's not, emotions are not just like a bloody tap you put on and off and on and off and on and off. When it's on, and it stops when you don't need to talk about it anymore. So you're sitting on the stand and you're going to talk about your experiences, so everything is coming up and you relive it again, so your emotions are continuous and not for 2 minutes, and then when your answer is over you wait for the new question. Well, exactly, Shivi. It's like when you talk about it, you're going through the whole train wreck again, and it's breaking. Okay, it doesn't really matter how long ago, because you're going through that pain again. The only thing what's changing is that you get stronger over the years and you get more resilience over the years, but you are angry as well to what is done to you. But it's not crying for 2 minutes and then it's over, and then the other question comes, and then when you have to answer, oh, now it's coming all back again. It's all coming back again. Oh yeah, okay, next question. Oh yeah, I'm feeling it. No. From the moment you sit on the stand till the end, you will be, if you're emotional, so Amber is showing she's emotional. Some people just don't cry, but they don't show the emotion as well. Like they can be just really angry. Okay, when you have a certain emotion, you stick with that certain emotion, or you will have mixed emotions, like what you saw with Johnny yesterday. So you go from sad to irritated to angry to confused to, and it's all following up from the moment you sit down till the end. Not like this, people. Well, I think that's a while ago, because she didn't get any jobs anymore. So, oh Christ, people. She isn't really a happy person, is she? So, what would she be thinking? Well, yes. Definitely. But it's so obvious. It's not even funny. Her breathing, but you don't know what the jury is thinking. Like, we're watching it, and like I'm watching it, and there are just some behavioral things that actually really stand out, like how long the emotions are for, and how her breathing is actually going. Like, her breathing doesn't make any sense. Like, when you're upset, you are short. You have short breath, short breathing, and not deep in and deep out. Because the deep in and deep out is actually that you are relaxed. So that's why we say when you really are very emotional and things come back, that we actually say, okay, stop here and just take a deep breath and out and in, hold it for 2 seconds and out, and get that calmness back, the relaxed feeling a little bit. Because when you're that upset, you're just like almost hyperventilating, like especially when you cry, like we all cried. And when you're that emotional, you're like, and your breath would be like that same. So, well, I didn't get this as well. Like, it was about how did it infected your career, and it's like, oh, I get threats. Okay. Yeah, but that has to do with your career. That's the public opinion. What already was ruined the moment you actually certain things came out. Oh, exactly. Like again, like everybody have different emotions or react different to their trauma. But not like this. This is I wouldn't even know what to do if I have a person actually sitting across me and telling the story like that. I would be like, okay, really? Like, or you cry and you're really upset and it shows. Okay, it really, really shows. Oh, well, Camille has to dig an ember hole. There's just one thing I want to say. Like, it doesn't matter how you think about a person, okay? But saying that you have to put your baby in a microwave, that's pathetic. Like, really? Like, this isn't really the fault of a child, you know? So, like, those comments that are just disgusting. Just saying. And so unnecessary. It's like, come on, people. But you're so upset, and look how she is sitting now. Like, where are your tears? Where are your shocking shoulders? Where is your emotion? And that's what the jury hopefully will not buy. Like, I wouldn't buy that. Like, or you're upset or you're not upset. You're not half upset. Simple. And I don't care what emotions you have. Like, if she was sitting there and would be bloody angry, what would make actually sense, you know, and stays angry, like what you said with Johnny yesterday, but then it was like, okay, keep it a bit down, like, you know, you don't want to look too aggressive as well. But then you're angry the whole time. And not 2 minutes. And then you get a question and then another 3 minutes. And then you're totally fine again when another question needs to be asked. Like, no. She just put her emotion tap on and off and on and off. And it's ugh. Well, that's the other thing, and we talked about it a bit earlier, like, when do you actually look at a person? Like, I wouldn't really look at my abuser. Maybe when but that will then be for a split second, like, because there is still fear in you. Like, even when you get treatment for PTSD and you learn how to get control over your life again, you deal with your self-esteem and the problems you had, you will always carry it with you, okay? And there will always be moments that things are coming up or that things are triggering you. The only thing what's different when you had like therapy or help is that you can deal with it better. I wouldn't look at it or him or her, whoever the perpetrator is, maybe for a moment, because I'm angry and this is what you did to me, and I want you to see that it won't have any effect on me. Okay? I wouldn't look, sit, and smile. And not just a smile like, oh, I'm a sweet little girl. No, the arrogance, the contempt, and like the proud smile. No. That's like abuser behavior. That's not victim behavior. In my opinion. But everybody is different. It's nah. In this case, like, her I don't understand it either. Like, if I was her lawyer, I would probably say to her, you know, just tell your story. Leave Mira at home. You don't need to know. Here we go again. We will get a question and she will be really upset. Or she's getting angry because Camille is asking the questions.
Ms. Heard, you just testified that this case has been very hard for you. So let's talk about that and why.
All right.
Your lies have been exposed to the world multiple times, right?
I haven't lied about anything I've been here to say.
You sat here and told this jury that the events in Hicksville started with Mr. Depp getting really upset about a woman leaning on you. Is that correct?
Yes, that's effectively what happened, yeah.
You testified that he actually grabbed that woman's wrist and twisted it, right?
And told her that he could effectively break her wrist by saying he knew how many pounds of pressure, or asking her how many pounds of pressure it took to break a human wrist.
But your own witness, your former best friend, Rocky Pennington, she didn't corroborate that, did she?
I'm not quite sure what part of that night she saw. There were a lot of people there.
She didn't testify that Mr. Depp grabbed anyone's wrist in Hicksville.
Again, I don't know what Rocky saw. There were a lot of people there that night.
You testified that once you brought Mr. Depp back to your trailer, he trashed it, correct?
That is correct.
And the manager of the Hicksville trailer park was furious that Johnny had wrecked the whole thing. Do you remember that testimony?
That's correct.
Well, we heard from that manager of the Hicksville trailer park, Morgan Knight, on Monday, didn't we?
I'm not quite sure who that guy was or if he had any involvement in this. I know a lot of people have come out of the woodwork to be involved.
So you're accusing Mr. Knight of testifying and committing perjury?
I'm not accusing anyone. I just don't recognize that man.
You heard Mr. Knight testify that
He's
it was
the
actually
owner.
you who was upset with Mr. Depp spending time away from him. Isn't that correct?
How would he know? He wasn't there.
You heard Mr. Knight testify that it was actually you who was yelling at Mr. Depp.
Again, I've heard a lot of people say a lot of things to be involved in the Johnny Depp show, but he wasn't there. He doesn't know. And he certainly doesn't know what happened behind closed doors, like most people.
So you're calling Mr. Knight a liar?
I am saying he wasn't there, and what he testified to doesn't match what I know happened. But I don't fault him. He wasn't there, so how would he know?
He testified he was there, Ms. Heard.
Look at
Did you
the
hear that?
face.
That's his testimony, yes.
So you're calling him a liar?
I'm just saying he wasn't there.
So
You
you're
heard
calling
Mr.
him a
Knight
liar.
testify that the trailer wasn't trashed, and that's why you're calling him a liar.
He testified that a light fixture was broken, similar to the way that
Yes,
Johnny's
other than a light
employees
fixture. That was
testified
the
to
only
my
thing that was
closet
broken,
being
right, Ms.
rearranged
Heard?
and things
Ms.
like
Heard?
that.
The only thing that was broken in the trailer, according to Mr. Knight, was a light fixture. Yes or no?
I realized that he summed it up by saying a light fixture was broken, just the way his security
But he
guard
wasn't
summed up
there.
trashing my closet as being rearranged.
Your Honor, I'm going to move to strike everything after he summed it up, that it was a light fixture, as non-responsive.
She answered the question, Your Honor.
Overruled.
In the security guard testimony, Your Honor?
I'll allow it. Go ahead.
Mr. Knight also testified that he charged Mr. Depp only $62 for the damaged light fixture. You heard that, correct?
I did.
In Hicksville, you were the only one that was jealous that Mr. Depp was spending time from other people. Isn't that correct, Ms. Heard?
That is incorrect.
In Hicksville, you were the one who was upset that Mr. Depp wasn't giving you enough attention.
Incorrect again.
Ooh.
Ms. Heard, you told us
No,
that you
that
had
is
no
true.
idea the press was going to be at the courthouse when you got your TRO on May 27th, 2016. Do you remember that testimony?
I said I did not have anything to do with it. Yes.
No. My question again. You told this jury that you had no idea that the press was going to be outside after you got the ex-party TRO on May 27th, 2016. Do you remember that testimony?
I apologize. I must have misunderstood, Ms. Vasquez. I actually had no idea whether they were going to be there or not. When I walked into the courtroom that day, it was completely quiet, still, empty.
Girl.
Even though I had given Johnny's team notice that I was filing a
Objection, Your
TRO,
Honor, this is
we had no
non-responsive.
reason to
Move
believe the
strike.
press knew.
And Your Honor, I would also ask that you instruct the witness to please stop talking once I lodge an objection.
Your Honor, she's trying to answer the question as best she
No,
can.
that
Ms.
is not
Vasquez
the
is misrepresenting
question.
her what she testified to.
I'll strike the last part as non-responsive. Just if you could just answer the questions asked. Okay, thank you, Ms. Heard.
In fact, you testified that you were, quote, shocked when you saw press when you were leaving the
Well,
courthouse.
exactly.
Yes.
Now she's
You weren't
angry,
shocked
and
at all,
she's
though, were
angry the whole time.
Incorrect. It was
You knew the press
horrifying.
would be at the courthouse, right, Ms. Heard?
No.
Yes, you did.
Well, you did bring your publicist to the courthouse with you on May 27th, 2016, didn't you?
I sure did. I'm a public figure. I brought my publicist in case it blew up. In case. And
You
I'm
actually
glad
had
I did.
alerted TMZ that you would be filing a TRO against
It's
Mr. Depp.
her
That
video.
very
No,
day,
I did
didn't
not.
you?
No, I
Yes.
did
The
not.
one day you didn't bother to wear makeup to cover up the mark on your face.
I did not call TMZ or any other news source or paparazzi source. No one.
Yes,
I
you
heard
never
did.
did that.
testimony from former TMZ employee Morgan Tremaine yesterday, correct?
Did I hear his testimony?
Yes.
Yes, I was here.
Yes. And you heard Mr. Tremaine's testimony that he knew to dispatch the paparazzi to the courthouse on May 27th, right?
I heard him say that he knew that, yes.
Yeah, and that he dispatched paparazzi to the courthouse to capture a picture of an alleged bruise on the right side of your face. Do you remember him saying that?
I remember him saying that.
That information must have come from your team, right, Ms. Heard?
Absolutely not. Why would I want that? What actual survivor of domestic violence wants that?
Now, the video of Mr. Depp beating up some kitchen cabinets, you admit that you took that video, correct?
Yes, I did.
Right. And you acknowledge that the video was released online the day before you were deposed in connection with your divorce from Mr. Depp in August of 2016, right?
I believe it was, yes.
But you testified that you had absolutely nothing to do with the video's release, right?
Absolutely not.
But
And
you
testified
own the
that you learned about
copyright.
it when you landed after flying into LA. Do you remember that testimony?
I think
Upon
she will
touchdown
get
is when
the
I was alerted to
copyright
the
in
video's
front of her
Heard
face
Mr.
like a
Tremaine
slap.
testify that about this video as well yesterday, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And you heard Mr. Tremaine testify that TMZ received the cabinet video the same day you landed at LAX, yes?
I don't know if that's what his testimony was. I'm sorry.
You heard Mr. Tremaine testify that the cabinet video was posted 15 minutes after TMZ received it, yes?
That's what I heard him say.
And that this could only have been possible if the video was received directly from the source, yes?
I heard him say that. I don't know if that's true or if that's possible because
And you
it didn't
heard
come from me. I was
Mr.
flying.
Tremaine
So
testify.
I know that's incorrect is what I mean to say.
Another liar on the stand.
I just know that that's incorrect.
Right. And you heard Mr. Tremaine testify that TMZ owns the copyright to the cabinet video.
I wouldn't have
That's
bring her
news to
up
me.
again
The
when
cabinet
you know
video
you
you
have
filmed
for
of
you
your
like
new
a
husband.
meal,
Yes?
like digging
The
holes.
copyright ownership of that is news to me. I learned that yesterday.
It's the cabinet video that you captured of your then husband, yes?
That is correct. I did capture that video, and
The
yes,
cabinet
that was
video-
my husband.
The same cabinet video that was released the night before you were deposed in your divorce,
And
yes?
she
That's
made
correct.
it, so she owns the
You
copyright.
must have also heard Mr. Tremaine
Original.
testify that the version of the cabinet video that TMZ received was incomplete compared to the video the jury saw in this trial. Did you hear that?
Yes.
The video that the jury, that you have seen is complete.
Right. But the one TMZ got the day before your deposition in the divorce was incomplete.
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
He testified that at the beginning portion of the video where you set up the camera, that wasn't included in the video that TMZ received.
I don't know what video TMZ
I'm talking
received.
about Mr. Tremaine's testimony, Ms. Heard. Let's just
So you're
focus on
asking me
Mr.
to
Tremaine.
repeat his testimony?
No, I'm asking you if you recall hearing him say those words to this jury.
Yes,
Under oath.
I heard his testimony. We all did.
And he testified that the end of the video where you can be seen smirking. I know you testified earlier that you haven't been smirking in this trial, but you sure were caught on camera smirking in that video.
I disagree with that.
Was also not included in the TMZ video.
Everyone can watch that video and you can determine whether you think it's funny to me or not.
That's because the video came from you, right, Ms. Heard?
No, it did not.
You
That
edited
video
out
did
the
not come
portions.
to me. No, I mean, come from me.
Ms. Heard, you edited out the portions that made you look bad before sending it to TMZ.
You're very wrong about that.
So
if
that
I
only
wanted to
Mr.
leak
Depp
information, I
looked
could have
bad.
done it in a more effective way, a lot sooner and a lot more.
Because you
I
knew
was
exactly
living
how to
with
do
a
that,
mountain
right?
of this evidence. If I wanted to leak it, I could have done a lot more with it.
I thought you testified earlier in this trial that you didn't know how to leak things.
I don't.
But she could do it a lot
You
more
edited that
effective.
video before you gave it to TMZ so that only Mr. Depp would look bad. Yes?
That's absurd.
Right in the middle of your divorce proceedings.
Again, you're very wrong.
Did you guys hear that? She could leak it in a more
I'd
efficient
like to show
way
you
than now.
a picture from that's already admitted
But
into
she
evidence.
said she
It's,
didn't know.
Defendant's Exhibit
I love
799.
Camille. I must say it. You. That's what's
This is you
killing
at the
her, the
courthouse on May
lies.
27, 2016, when
Like,
you got your
even
domestic
if
violence
there
restraining
is
order
a
against Mr.
bit
Depp,
of
right?
truth in
It
there.
is.
And next to you is a woman named Jody Gottlieb, right?
Yes, yes.
Jody Gottlieb is your publicist.
And dear friend.
Now I'd like to show you what's been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 1316.
Did
This
they
is a
get
picture
a
of
photo
you and your
from
friend Rocky
Tisa?
Pennington, right?
That is correct.
Your Honor, I'd like to move to admit this photograph.
Any objection to 1316?
No, Your Honor.
All right, 1316 in evidence. You can publish to the jury.
This is a picture of you on May 28th, 2016, right, Ms. Heard?
I don't know when this was taken.
This is the day after you obtained the domestic violence restraining order against Mr. Depp, right?
I have no idea when this image was taken. I did not take it.
There's no bruise on your face in this picture, is there?
Again, I don't know when this was taken, and also I'm outside. I was obviously wearing makeup. I have no idea when this was taken, so I have no idea if
if
you can
that
see
is
it.
wearing
Recollection.
makeup.
You can see
Let's
or not.
refresh your recollection about when this picture was taken. Can we please pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 1315, just for the witness? This is an article dated May 30th, 2016, right, Ms. Heard?
That's what it says, yes.
And this article contains the same photograph of you and Ms. Pennington we were just looking at, yes?
Yes, I see that.
And the article is entitled, Amber Heard Smiles as She Puts Arm Around Friend One Day After Getting Restraining Order Against Johnny Depp. Is that what the title says?
I know that's what the title says, yes.
I think she
Your Honor, I'm going to move to admit
stole
and
one of
publish the
Johnny's
article with
MDMA
everything
pills.
but the headline and date and the photo redacted.
Objection, Your Honor. That's inconsistent from the way you've treated all of these.
I'll sustain the objection. All right, next question.
Let's take a look at picture Plaintiff's Exhibit 1317. This is also a picture of you and Ms. Pennington on May 28th, 2016, isn't it?
I don't know when this photo was taken, but it looks like the same outing as the picture prior.
Your Honor, I'm going to move to admit and publish Plaintiff's Exhibit 1317.
Any objection?
No, Your
All
Honor.
right, 1317 in evidence. You can publish.
There's no bruise on your face in this picture either, right?
I disagree. If it is taken when you represent it was taken, then obviously there's a bruise on my face. It's covered by makeup, as per usual.
Let's zoom out of that picture for a moment, please. Thanks, Tom. That's Josh Drew in this picture, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And Ms. Pennington
That is correct.
in there too? Ms.
That is
Pennington
correct.
submitted a sworn statement on your behalf in support of your domestic violence restraining order, didn't she?
I believe she did, yes.
Mr. Drew also submitted a statement in support of a domestic violence restraining order.
I believe they both did, yes.
Ms. Heard, I'd like to show you Defendant's Exhibit 512, which is already in evidence.
Well.
You've seen this photograph before, right?
I have.
On the second day of your direct testimony, you testified that this was taken in the downstairs of the main apartment on December 15th, 2015. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, I believe so.
So it's your testimony that Defendant's Exhibit 512 reflects damage to Penthouse 5 that occurred during the December 15th, 2015 incident, yes?
I'm not quite sure from what incident this is when I see this photo in a vacuum without context.
Let's give you that context. Can we please? Thanks. I could have day 16 trial testimony.
Oh, people.
We approach.
All right.
Okay. A couple of days ago, they were talking about calling up witnesses, and a lawyer, the ones who actually answered questions, they were like,
Could you please turn first to
don't
page
recall Amber.
4585?
Because that wouldn't work well. Well, there we go.
Specifically starting on line 16, where it says, let's talk about December 15th, 2015.
You said 458, I'm on 4485, sorry. You said 4585.
4585.
Pardon.
Line 16. Line 16, where it says, let's talk about December 15th, 2015. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. And then do you see that your testimony about December 15th, 2015 follows?
Let's see. It's just the first line or two. Yes.
Okay. Now I'd like you to turn to page 4603.
I really don't understand that you
starting at line 12.
Would put yourself through this.
4603. Starting at line 12 and going on to page 4604.
It's also really sad for the children hospital. Like, if you have to pay Johnny 15 million.
Okay. And do you see
she
that you
can't
testified
really
that Defendant's Exhibit
pay her
512,
donations
which
she
is on the
promised
screen,
to the bloody
is a picture
children
of the downstairs of the main apartment?
That's correct.
And the main apartment is Penthouse 5 in the Eastern Columbia building, right?
No, well, depends on what. The main apartment's Penthouse 3, generally, when we say main apartment.
Penthouse 5 was where you had your closet?
The downstairs was kind of like had some of my painting studio set up and a reception area. Upstairs was the closet. Mezzanine office was in between.
All right, so it's your testimony that Defendant's Exhibit 512 reflects damage to the penthouse, Penthouse 5, that occurred during the December 15th, 2015 incident, right?
I'm just not sure from which incident this is a picture of, since I'm only looking at
Even
a
though your
partial
counsel
floor.
was asking you questions about December 15th, 2015, and then admitted this picture into evidence?
Again,
in relation to that incident.
Sorry, go ahead.
In relation to that incident on December 15th, 2015, this exhibit, Defendant's Exhibit, you are the defendant, number 512, was admitted into evidence in this court. You testified that this was the result of damage that occurred on December 15th, 2015. Yes or no?
I just need to orient myself because I'm just looking at a picture of a partial picture of a
Ms. Heard,
floor,
you didn't just
so
look
I
at a
can't.
picture. You looked at your testimony.
pointed me towards the page and then asked me a question. I haven't actually reviewed it. I don't know if this was submitted in relation to that incident.
Let's actually leave out Defendants 512 and please pull up Defendants Exhibit 725, which is already in evidence.
Thank you.
In redacted form, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You can publish.
Just side by side. You've seen this photograph as well, right?
I have.
On the third day of your direct testimony,
Bye,
you testified that this
hope
photograph
to see you
reflected
soon
spilled
in one of
wine
our
in
other
Penthouse 5 on May 21st,
streams.
2016. Didn't
Really
you?
good to talk.
Again, I don't know because I'm looking at a
Have a
partial
good
picture
day.
of a floor. So unless you remove the metadata you've covered up, we could then tell. If you
I didn't
remove,
cover it up, Your Honor.
Could we unredact
Your Honor
them so we could get context?
That's how it's in evidence.
That's how
All
it's in
right.
evidence.
Next question.
Well, the metadata next to it is so that
Ms.
to
Heard,
avoid this
Ms.
sort of
Heard,
confusion.
there is no question pending, and I would appreciate it if you wouldn't be making argument to the jury.
Sorry, I
It's
thought you had
inappropriate.
asked me about it.
No, I didn't ask you about anything. Let's look at your direct testimony from the third day.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's turn to page 4750 in day 17 transcript.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
4750.
Sure. But it really doesn't matter. Like, normally you really...
Specifically line 16. Do you see where Ms. Bredehoff
Gets
asked you
into
to
this
describe
kind
for the
of
jury
things
what
when
took
you-
place on May 21st, 2016?
I see that.
And do you see that your testimony is reflected about May 21, 2015?
Yes.
That follows? Okay.
Yes.
Now let's turn to page 4804. At line 14. 4804. Starting at line 14
Yes.
through 4805, line 4.
Really would wish we could actually see those lines.
Going to what line?
Oh
line
my
4 at
goodness.
4805.
Maybe she needs an earpiece in so we can tell her what line she actually
Do you see
needs
that you're
to read.
testifying that Defendant's Exhibit 725, which is reflected on the right side, reflects spilled wine on the floor in Penthouse 5?
That's correct.
Okay. And Defendant's Exhibit 512 and 725 seem to be different versions of the same picture, don't they?
That's correct.
Okay. So which is it? Which one was taken on December 15th, 2015, or May 21st, 2016?
If you remove the redacted metadata, you can find out. It's right there.
Or if you're telling the truth, you would know.
Recognize a portion of spilled wine on a floor, and I'm supposed to know off the top of my head when you've
No.
lived through 5 years of this stuff? I don't think so. That's not how that works.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Ms. Heard, at the beginning of your cross-examination
Your
last
Honor, may
week...
we approach?
Yes.
Ooh. She doesn't really look upset there. Well, depends on what you... No. Yeah, I'm out of Switzerland. Like, nah. Like, I would
All right,
be
ladies
really
and gentlemen
upset.
in the gallery, I would ask that there be no words or no phrases, no words, no sounds at all coming from you. If I hear one more sound, I will clear the gallery and we will continue this testimony without anybody in the courtroom. Understood? Good. All right, your next question.
Ms. Heard, at the beginning of your cross-examination last week, I showed you an audio where you told Mr. Depp to tell the jury, tell the judge, tell the world that he is a victim of domestic abuse. Do you remember that?
That's correct.
And you testified you found it hard to believe that Mr. Depp would tell the world that he's a victim of domestic abuse, didn't you?
I said I find it hard to believe that he would do that knowing that he himself had beat me up for 5 years.
But he has told the world that he's your victim of domestic abuse, hasn't he?
Well, he started to say that only recently. He didn't make that claim up until very recently. So when we signed our divorce agreement and we signed a statement saying that neither party had ever said false claims for financial gain, it was relevant and important to me because I was the only one making the accusations. I was the only one making those claims. He wasn't doing that at the time, and he signed his name to it.
You didn't expect as many people to show up and testify on his behalf that did you?
Incorrect.
When you told this jury under oath that you never assaulted, actually, struck that, sorry. When you told this jury under oath that you punched Mr. Depp because you thought of Mr. Depp pushing Kate Moss down the stairs, you didn't expect Ms. Moss to agree to testify that never happened, did you?
Incorrect. I know how many people will come out of the woodwork to be in support of Johnny.
So you think Ms. Moss needs to come out of the woodwork to testify for Mr. Depp?
Everybody who was around in the 90s and the early aughts knew that rumor. I had heard that rumor from multiple people. Of course, that's what flashed through my head when my violent husband not only swung for me, but all of a sudden swung for my sister. Of course I thought of that. I did not expect her to show up or not expect her to show up. It didn't matter. It doesn't change what I believed at the time when we were on the stairs and I thought he was going to kill my sister by pushing her down the stairs.
You told this jury under oath that Mr. Depp was aggressive and trashed a trailer in Hicksville. You didn't expect the manager of the Hicksville property, Morgan Knight, to come forward and testify that was untrue, did you?
Incorrect. I've already been through trials with this man. I know how many people will come out in support of him.
When you told this jury under oath that you had no idea that the paparazzi would be at the courthouse on
And
May
she
27th,
said she had no
2016,
idea
you didn't
who
expect
that
a
man
TMZ
was.
employee to show up to testify that TMZ had been alerted that you would be at the courthouse and knew exactly which side of your face to take a picture of, did you?
I know how many people will come out and say whatever for him. That's his power. That's why I wrote the op-ed. I was speaking to that phenomenon. How many people will come out in support of him and will fall to his power? He's a very powerful man, and people love currying favor with powerful men.
And
I know that
she
firsthand.
said she wrote the op-ed to make him less powerful.
I didn't hear your question.
You didn't hear my question?
Ms. Vasquez, if you do mind, please just repeat the question. I didn't hear you.
Curry favor and commit perjury in this courtroom?
I have
For
seen
a
people
powerful
do this.
man?
I have seen people do this time and time again. That's why I wrote the op-ed.
You didn't expect Ben King, the house manager in Australia, to show
That's-
up from England. He flew from England to testify that Mr. Depp's fingertip
She
was found
said
exactly where he said
she
it would.
didn't.
Did you?
I have never heard Johnny testify to knowing where his finger was, or really, frankly, making a claim that he knew where it was when it was found. I've never heard Johnny claim that.
You didn't expect
Johnny
Keenan
doesn't-
Wyatt.
Johnny has never
Ms.
actually
Heard.
said that.
Ms. Heard.
And
I think the
Ben
jury
King,
can.
yes.
Ms. Heard, there's no question pending. You didn't expect Keenan Wyatt, Mr. Depp's longtime sound technician, to show up and testify that Mr. Depp is not being fed lines through his earpieces, but instead music, did you?
Not that it matters much, but of course I did. I know how his employees treat him.
So you
I know how
probably-
his team treats him. Of course I expected that.
Okay, so you probably expected Isaac Baruch to come and testify for Mr. Depp, right?
I'm not sure I thought about that.
Yeah, but you didn't expect Mr. Baruch to weep for Mr. Depp after what you've put him through and so many others with your lies.
I
did you?
relate to Isaac because he and I are
There's
the
no
only
further
ones who have
questions, Your
cried
Honor.
on this stand.
Nothing further.
All right. Redirect.
Oh, please don't.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Heard, if Mr. Baruch felt misled, who misled him?
Johnny, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him from crying. This is horrible.
Ms. Vasquez has suggested that you faked bruises on your face. Is that true?
Absolutely not. I didn't need to.
Did you ever fake an injury caused by Mr. Depp?
No.
Is any of the evidence of your injuries that has been put to the jury in this trial fake?
No, absolutely not.
And to the extent that there may be some confusion over when a picture of spilled wine was taken, why might that be?
Objection,
Because there's so
lack of
many-
foundation.
Overruled.
Because there's so many incidents of violence. There's so many pictures. There's so much evidence. Most people don't have this kind of evidence for years, 5 years. And when I was saying that to Johnny on the phone,
there is
that
a
recording, I was saying for
reason
years,
why
this has been
people
going on.
don't
And I
have that
pictures,
much
we have texts, we
evidence.
have everything. Normally, you don't get this amount of evidence. That's what I was pointing out to Johnny. It would be crazy to try to challenge this in this way. It's crazy. It's easy to not know the context of a picture of spilled wine because there are so many more important details, pictures, and also so much I didn't photograph, so much I didn't have the presence of
Objection,
mind to
non-responsive.
document.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Did Mr. Depp abuse you physically?
Yes,
Verbally?
yes,
Emotionally?
yes,
Psychologically?
yes.
How did the threats that Mr. Depp made against you individually years ago resemble what you've endured as a result of the Depp-Waldman statements?
Oh.
Beyond the scope of cross, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Johnny promised me he would ruin me, that he'd ruin my career, he'd take my life from me. Death was the only way out, and if I got out, this is what he'd do to me. He'd make me think of him every single day. He promised me global humiliation. You saw those texts. What he couldn't do, the work of one individual, meaning Johnny, when he was inviting a disgruntled employee over for a spot of purple to fix my flabby ass up, that revenge that he sought back then was just what he could do as an individual, calling the studio to get me fired, trying to block
Objection, Your Honor, lack of foundation, speculation, hearsay,
all in
non-responsive.
I'll sustain it as to non-responsive.
Ms. Heard, how did those things that you just testified to that Mr. Depp did, how did those resemble what happened to you after the Depp-Waldman counterclaim statements were made?
Well, those are
Objection, Your Honor, lack of foundation.
She's
overruled.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Those are just an echo of what I'm living through today. It's like what I'm living in right now. What you see in this courtroom is an echo. This courtroom and the other courtroom he dragged me into to do the same thing again. That's just an echo of the violence and the abuse that I suffered within our relationship. The campaigns to have me fired, the blocking me to try to ruin my career, the threats he's made to humiliate me globally are being lived out in real time in front of you, ladies and gentlemen, for the past 6 weeks and for the whole world since our camera's here.
No further questions. Thank you so much, Amber.
All right, Ms. Heard, you can have a seat next to your attorneys. If I can have the attorneys approach.
Why would you do it again? Why would you put her on the stand? So, now what?
Witness?
Your Honor, the counterclaimant Amber Heard rests.
All right, thank you, ma'am. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard all the evidence you're going to hear in this matter. What I propose doing is to go ahead and give you the rest of the afternoon off so you can have a good restful afternoon and evening, and we will do closing arguments tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., and then the case will be submitted to you for deliberations. Just to give you a little logistics of how that will go, tomorrow I won't give you a time limit as far as how long you can deliberate in the afternoon into the evening. I will tell you, within reason, I will tell you I do not serve dinner, so keep that in mind, okay? You will not be deliberating on Saturday or Sunday or Monday, because Monday is a holiday. I would like to have you back here Tuesday morning, at least by 9 o'clock. If you want to come earlier, that's up to you. You can decide as a group if you want to come earlier than 9 o'clock, but you have to be here at least by 9 o'clock to resume your deliberations again. And again, on Tuesday night, and if you have to go to Wednesday or Thursday, that the time that when you take your breaks is up to you, as long as you take them together, as far as not having any deliberations unless all of the jurors are in the room at the same time. When you take your lunch is up to you. And then again in the evening, within reason, I'll let you go as long as you'd like to go, okay? So have a good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow morning, okay? Do not discuss the case with anybody. Don't do any outside research.
Wow. Well, this is it, people. So then we have the closing arguments tomorrow.
We'll go ahead and take a modified lunch recess just till 12:50. We'll come back at 12:50. We just have a few jury instructions left we have to do. Make sure we get the verdict form taken care of. I want you to review the laptop that we have mocked up and make sure everybody agrees what's on it. And also I want you to look through all your exhibits and make sure we're all on the same page before you leave. I'll make sure you have copies of the jury instructions in the order that I'm going.
So, well, that's it for today. Well, that was a quick one. So, yeah. Tomorrow at 9 or 8:45 a.m. around that time we will be back to listen to the closing arguments. So for now I would like to wish you all a really good day and hope to see you all tomorrow.